Test, 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 test. Okay, just getting set up here. We're ready to go. Just a second. Okay. Just gonna take a moment. First of all, to cough, as usual. Just to make sure that the stream is coming through okay. Set up and started in just a sec. Okay, looks like it's good. Oh, hi Sarias, how's it going? Hopefully you're feeling better. Thanks so much for stopping by. Thank you again for your assistance with the understanding the terms related to like the sci-fi and astronomical aspects related to the multiversal slash universal stuff, the Naruto stuff. It's very helpful actually to help me kind of understand and wrap my head around things. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm actually feeling okay overall. Like I had a bad cold for a little while, and I got through it for the most part. But then, for whatever reason, like I'll have a cold that usually lasts 1 week, like clockwork, and then it'll be like 2 or 3 weeks of this shitty coughing afterwards. So, but not in pain or anything really. It's just irritating. But thank you for asking. How are you feeling? I know you were under the weather for a little bit. Hopefully things are better on your end. So welcome everyone to the stream. If you're new here, this is a Dark Souls 2 stream where we're going through the game kind of at a leisurely pace and talking about the game's design, everything from, you know, enemy placement to environmental lighting to sound design and soundtrack, etc., etc. A little bit about my background. I'm a game developer. I've been working in the games industry for several years now. I've worked on little indie projects and larger AAA projects, and as a developer and as a player, I've been inspired by the Souls series, and I'm always impressed at the way that they approach game design challenges, the ways in which they tell their story using every aspect of the game design as an active part of that storytelling process. Recently, I came across some critiques of Dark Souls 2 that I found kind of provocative, and I wanted to dive back into the game to see if I agreed with those critiques and see if I could try to understand where people were coming from, as I am personally a big fan of the game, but I was pretty surprised to see what a backlash it was getting among certain members of the community. Thus far, I found that most of the critiques that I have come up against, I've not wound up agreeing with, and I found them to be kind of revealing as to a certain perspective on games that I can talk about in greater detail. But without getting into the specifics of that, it's just been sort of interesting to see how the discourse around the game has changed. You know, it's alternately been praised and hated, and that seems to kind of go back and forth over the years. So for today, we're going to continue our playthrough into the Undead Crypt. We're getting close to Vendrick. We're getting close to the game's third and final act, and on our way there, we're going to be talking a little bit more about the game's overall themes, about like light and dark, about Vendrick and Aldia, excuse me. We're still going to be keeping the build pretty much the same. You know, I'm trying to restrict myself to a mostly simple melee build in order to follow along with the experiences of other people who have been critiquing the game from the perspective of melee players for the most part. But that being said, I think it'll be a lot of fun to kind of try to march towards the game's conclusion, so to speak. I'm looking forward to that. A little bit of housekeeping as I go around and level up, and you know, I think I'm still going to stick with this build, but I might level up a couple of the items or weapons just to have some variety. But yeah, feel free to throw me any questions or suggestions, anything you might be curious about the game overall. More than happy to talk about various aspects of it as we as we explore. Oh, that's great, Saria. I'm God damn it. I'm glad that you have a lot more energy. It must be so nice, such a relief to have that behind you and be feeling better, for sure. It always is for me. So, I think I am tempted to start to get into other weapons like this, because they're just so cool and interesting. And I think I'm still kind of motivated by keeping with the restriction of a simple melee weapon. So I'm going to keep doing that for now. However, I think it might be worth keeping like a backup. Bastard sword might be a good idea. I think the Drangleic sword has slightly better scaling. A and dexterity, but I'm not really... How did I level this guy up? I forget. I have quite a bit of dexterity. Okay, so maybe I'll level up the Drangleic sword, just have something in my back pocket. Alternately, I could try the katana. See how that goes. A lot more slow and ponderous of a weapon. Not as much a fan of it. It feels a little bit more esoteric. I want to try and keep it simple. So, actually, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just level up a basic longsword, because the base longsword is something that a lot of players can find early on in the game, has a really solid moveset, pretty versatile, and I think doing that will let us have a little bit more variety while still basically sticking to the premise of the game overall, or to the constraint of the run, so to speak. So let me level this up real quick, and then we'll get back into the crypt. Let's see. I could get this up to +10. I might as well, because this is definitely going to carry me through for most of the game. Honestly, it's I think it's great that there are so many weapons and items early on that, if you know, used carefully or mindfully, can wind up carrying you so far in the game, and still have a lot of variety and flexibility. Like, I've done probably 5 playthroughs of Bloodborne using nothing but the saw cleaver and the starting blunderbuss, and they still feel great after all that time. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, another one of the constraints of the playthrough that was suggested by folks like Mahler is to use as many souls as you can to level up, and then every remaining soul basically has to go to life gems, and then try using life gems as your only source of healing. So that's what we've been doing for the past little while, I think ever since the gutter. So I'm not going to be using these, I'm not going to be trading in any of these things or engaging with those systems. I'm just going to be exclusively leveling up via, you know, the normal souls items, and then dumping as much as I can into life gems and seeing where that takes me. Hello. Yeah. So, going with dexterity so far. Seems to be treating us pretty well. Okay, so after leveling up, keeping in mind that we're 30 hours into the game now according to the in-game clock, and we are currently sitting at level 122. I've ended playthroughs around 180 before, so we are kind of closing in on the end. But following Mahler's suggestion, guidelines, whatever you want to call it, I now have spent all my souls. I haven't, apart from upgrading my weapon, I haven't upgraded my armor. I haven't bought any, you know, consumables like poison arrows or darts or anything like that. I haven't really experimented with other other rings or things like that. I really just have gotten myself the healing items as instructed, so to speak. And now I have 30 of them. So let's see how long can I last as a very experienced player on 30 life gems. A reminder that I don't consider myself to be very good at the game at all, but I have completed a challenge run, being the no death, no bonfire run, and so I feel like, you know, I'm probably qualified to speak on the game's difficulty. I feel like I've earned it. If it feels kind of weird to say that, like I don't really believe in that sort of gatekeeping. But in case anybody did want to gatekeep me, so to speak, I think that I have some credentials, even though I'm not like an expert player. I'm not a speedrunner or anything like that, right? So that being said, I just went to the wrong bonfire. I just wanted to go up and, actually I'll save that for later. I was gonna go check on the Milfanito, but I think I'm going to start with the crypt instead. Nope, the crypt is interesting in particular because, death and dark, to us in the real world, and rightly so, is something that's considered quite foreboding and awful in some respects, and, something to be avoided, something maybe even to be detested. I'm certainly not a big fan of death. Never feels good to lose someone, never feels good to contemplate your own mortality. But in Dark Souls 2, given that everyone is in this world is cursed to eternal life, essentially, some varying form of it. One sec, sorry. It becomes clear that life is not particularly good inherently. At least that seems to be the perspective of some of the people in the game. For example, Aldia seems pretty fucking fed up with the farce of life under the restrictions of the curse, so to speak, under the influence of the curse, rather. And so it becomes interesting to see how people view life itself as a curse and do not seem to think of undeath as something that is good. Personally, if I had a chance at immortality, I would be extremely motivated to do so. Not to the point of ever harming anybody else or anything like that in exchange for it, but it would definitely be like I think one of the most amazing opportunities to have, the opportunity to be effectively immortal. I don't want to witness the heat death of the universe or anything like that. But there's just so much to see and do. I don't want my life to end. Oh, look at that. That's quite an evocative and chilling little image there. But in this game, the people who have actually had experience with eternal life have kind of come to the conclusion, some of them, that it's it's not so good. And the dark, creepy tomb infested with hollows is actually considered a place of respite and comfort. And you're told specifically when you come into the tomb not to bring light with you. It's considered like a grave offense. Essentially, this is a place where people have come to remain still, to sort of, in a Buddhist sense, remove themselves from the suffering and attachments of life. Saria says, I don't consider myself good. I did this challenge run. Yeah, sorry, I hope that didn't sound douchey or anything. I just, I think I mentioned this before. Like, I saw, what is it, Parkin Harbor, playing 2 copies of Elden Ring simultaneously with 2 different rhythm controllers. Like, she beat Melania with her feet while also beating Melania on another instance of the game, with, Donkey Kong bongos or something like that, I forget. But, there are people out there who have achieved levels of skill that I'm never going to touch. That's okay. Like, I'm not particularly motivated to be... how can I phrase it? I'm perfectly happy to sit back and watch in awe of people who can do those sorts of things, and not be able to replicate them myself necessarily. But yeah, I do think that I'm, I've put a few hundred hours into the game. I made a lore video about it before. I've really tried to understand it and study it, I guess is a douchey way of putting it, but I think it kind of applies. And yeah, I don't want it to seem like I'm just approaching this from the position of a contrarian who's just out to talk shit about other people's opinions. Okay, not douchey at all. I just think it's hilarious. Okay, good. I appreciate that. Hopefully this cough will clear up within the next few minutes. So yeah, basically what I was trying to articulate was that the tomb itself is a kind of creepy, foreboding place of death filled with bones and skeletons and such. Something that we would consider to be a harsh, unwelcoming, even disturbing and terrifying place, but not necessarily to the people, the inhabitants of this place. They might see it more as a refuge, as a place of comfort, where they're disassociating from the kind of cycle of suffering. So, I also think it's very interesting, first and foremost, to look at the color of the skin of these characters. There's a few characters who have this particular coloration to their skin that appear to belong to, I guess, a certain faction more so than a certain race of human beings. Of course, as their kind of skin color might imply, they're associated with like dark and death. I think some of them might be even called like tomb keepers or grave keepers or something like that. Um, these enemies in particular are quite interesting in that we saw them cast miracles in the form of the lightning bolt, um, as well as a pursuer's style spell where they're conjuring up manifestations of human emotion to chase you down, as well as a fire spell. So they're also muttering some of the same sorts of vocalizations as the sorcerers from Amana. So these characters are particularly interesting in that they seem to have abilities that span a wide like range of schools, so to speak, of disciplines. Their staff in as well as like this sort of twisted spiral, and the way that they God, I'm so sorry. Um, that they hold it outward is very kind of aggressive and posing. It almost makes it look like they've been impaled from certain angles by the spike. Their design is really cool. I love that kind of crown of cloth. There's a variety of runes all over them. You know, long extended nails, the draping kind of tattered cloth. It's it feels kind of funerary, but also dignified in a way, and kind of elegant. And I think it does a great job of kind of exemplifying the overall aesthetics of the of the tomb itself, or of this level itself. The characters are consistently made to feel as extensions of the environments themselves. Yeah, I'm sorry. I must be annoying to listen to the cough. I apologize. I am actually feeling great. It's just this stupid little tickle in the back of my throat that keeps coming up. Hopefully it'll pass. If it keeps going like this, I might pause and make some tea and then come back in a little bit. It usually helps. One second, sorry. Part of it is the allergies as well. Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate your concern, Saria. Yeah, I've been looking forward to the stream as well, so... Hi.
Human, do not produce light. Light, and all those who bear it, are unwelcome in this place.
Interesting that he refers to us as human. Which seems to imply that maybe he's not entirely human, or he sees us as distinct or separate.
I am Undead, guardian of the crypt. Countless dead rest here in peace, cradled by the comfort of dark. Light only agitates. We have no need for it here. I am a finito. We weave death and watch over the dead. This task was granted to me by the one who gave us the first death. Countless souls rest here. Some of them from ages long ago. Some were rich, others poor, some wise, some dull, but now they're all just dead. Did you come for him? The one called Vendrick. You will find him deeper inside. Many castle servants and the like have come to fetch their lord. But they rest here now, put to death by the king's own guards. Perhaps he's not in the mood for company. In the past, humans were one with the dark. The former King of Light, he feared humans. Feared that they would usher in an age of dark. How queer you humans. How you go on, never separating truth from fiction. This place is welcome to all, provided due reverence is shown. Death is equitable, accepting. We will all one day be welcomed by her embrace. Tell me what you desire. Show me reverence, and I will lend you a hand. I am a finito. This task was granted to me. Countless souls rest. Some are rich.
Okay. Fire is what the caster wishes it be. That's a very important it's a very important line for sure. So
In the past, the former king of
I'm gonna,
going so
gonna try and get past the tickle in my throat and speak a little bit more. Yeah, actually, I feel kind of silly about doing this, but I think I have to delay the stream a little bit because I can't talk with the stupid cough. So I'm gonna go and make some tea, and I will come back hopefully within 10 minutes, and I should be able to go. I apologize for the delay, but if I don't take a minute to take care of this, then this is gonna be the whole 3 hours. And ain't nobody got time for that, right? So I'll be right back. Thanks for your patience. I'm alive. See here. And the stream is going to be a mess tonight. Okay. Thanks for your patience. I'm going to keep it a little bit low-key until everything settles over here. A little ASMR. Drinking... Fuck. Drinking tea, trying not to cough ASMR. Welcome to Drangleic, where we're all fucked up. Zarya says, that's something I've always been confused about with Dark Souls, because sometimes I feel like the player is human, other times I question whether we're something more because of her accomplishments. Well, interesting line of questioning for sure. I think it depends on the game. And it depends on what you mean by human. You're consistently referred... Oh, shit, sorry. Motion sickness warning incoming. I think that, for sure, you're referred to by other characters as being human in this game. And so I think it is fair to assume that you are, like, genetically human, your species is human. Your role in the game is a bearer of the curse. And I do think the fact that you can use souls to enhance yourself and change your nature does mean that you are something a bit beyond human. There's also this idea that characters like the Demon of Song and the Demon of what's the... I'm blanking on his name for whatever reason. The one who is in the Earthen Peak. The Covetous Demon, yeah. The characters like that are humans that have been transformed by desire, by the power of souls. I think that is something where, like, the nature of you as a human is very malleable and subjective to a certain extent in this game. In Dark Souls 3, the idea is that you're not human in the traditional sense. You are humanoid, but rather than being a specific person who's been kind of brought back from the dead or whatnot, you're actually more like an amalgamation of a bunch of different people. I don't know if I'll survive that. Let me see. And the way it works, as I understand it, it's probably not entirely accurate. The way I understand it is that in Dark Souls 3, people have tried and failed to link the fire so many times that eventually, you know, they started bringing back heroes of old to try to help them resurrect or relink the fire, and that didn't work. The world wasn't saved. The crisis was not averted. And so in desperation, finally... I'm probably gonna die if I go down there. Don't give up, skeleton, yeah. In desperation, they basically start going around to, oh, it's a brazier. So, no, yeah, I will die if I go down there. The people who are trying to link the fire, well, close one, start going around to graveyards and basically start scooping up ashes from a bunch of random people that are in the graveyard that seem like noteworthy or potentially useful, potentially have some kind of chance of linking the fire, or, you know, just who the fuck ever, and pushing them together and making them into a gross lump of human-like material that they then send out on a mission. You are referred to specifically as Ashen One, and you're kind of a human, but you're also kind of just this empty vessel, a non-person that is vaguely based on other people, and your duty, your mission, is to just go around collecting actual people's actual souls and then forcing them back into the fire again. It's a completely gross and weird and pointless gesture, and I guess it's sort of up to you as you play through the game to decide whether or not you view your character as human, whether or not you actually have agency and are making choices, and if those choices matter. Like, to what extent does your character have free will? To what extent do they actually have any real control? I think that's kind of up to you to decide. But just like in Dark Souls 1, you're definitely a human, but you're also kind of like nudged along by fate as well. So the question of your free will is also in dispute, I think. That being said, there does seem to be a distinction between humans and the undead. Um, there is obviously the concept of undeath, and characters are referred to as undead in Dark Souls 2 for sure. But at the same time, Dark Souls 1 has more of an emphasis on that term and draws more of a distinction between the undead and humans in more noticeable ways. Like, seems to consider them like almost different classes or castes of people, and it's kind of discussed, so to speak, in interesting ways. For example, it's implied in Dark Souls 3 that maybe earlier, but definitely in Dark Souls 3, that fucking the undead cannot enjoy taste anymore. That they don't really taste food, and so in Dark Souls 3 you find a soup that you can pick up and drink, left by another character, and when you get an item from him later, oh, he also gives you like this keg of beer later on, and or meat or whatever, and when that happens, if you read the description, it says something along the lines of, this guy was just so chill and so happy-go-lucky that he figured out a way to make something that was tasty even to undead, even though undead aren't supposed to be able to taste anything. So yeah, and then of course there's hollows, right? Hollows are human beings that have lost their mind and their personality and all that, and have become like kind of animalistic, I guess, and very primal. Definitely don't seem to have free will in the traditional sense, seem to be more motivated by like animal instinct. Might just be like mindlessly doing the last things they did before they died. Like if they're soldiers, they're probably gonna be just randomly patrolling or whatever. If they were hunters, they might be just meandering about looking for things to kill for no reason. And so that becomes an interesting question. So at what point, like, how much of your humanity do you have to lose before you are no longer human? Is it enough to just die once? Is there something about inherently like being bound to the world in a normal traditional sense? Like if you've gone through the process of dying once, does that mean that you have like separated yourself from normal humanity in some unshakable way? Let's see. And then there's, you know, obviously as you hollow, you lose your free will and you lose your agency and you lose your personality and identity, and those are things that I think most people would agree are maybe even more human than our bodies, right? Like if your brain were to be implanted in a robot body, obviously you would feel different. It wouldn't quite feel the same. You wouldn't quite feel human anymore. But the thing that really makes you you, I think, is probably the brain, the mind. Some people might call it the soul or whatever. I think you would perhaps rightly describe yourself as being a human in a robot body, but not a robot, right? So, interesting question. I think that I'll have to think more about how each of the games handle that question, because I think they each have slightly different suggestions as to the answer there. My tea's almost done steeping, so hopefully I should be able to talk slightly more normally pretty soon. But I guess I haven't actually talked much about this level, so this is, for whatever reason, a level that doesn't really come up all that much in discussions of the game and the critiques that I've seen. And I need to go back and play the vanilla version of this, because this is not how I remember it, I admit. It is pretty weird to, engage with this level and come in and have this person say, hey, do not bring light into here. Light is not welcome, and anybody who carries light with them is also not welcome in here. And as a matter of fact, if you do take out a torch and if you light a given object in here, it actually changes the environment in a very dramatic and interesting way, which I kind of want to do, but I don't want to ruin it. I forget if it's this torch over here, or if there's there's a little statue that's hidden somewhere that you can light up, and it changes, like it lights up the whole environment. It's really cool. There's all these kind of creepy statues everywhere. But if you do that, then you go back to Agdane. Either he will attack you, and or his guards will attack you, and so it cuts you off from certain options, and therefore is kind of risky in its own way, right? So, not something that you want to do lightheartedly or without thinking, absent-mindedly. And so, oh shit. Ah. Oh, did he get like a critical attack on me? Gonna give me a chance to heal up, buddy? Appreciate that. I want to talk about this guy too in a second. So, yeah. Imperious armor, I have to check that out in a sec. So, the idea is that you should come into this area, and the area should be totally pitch black. Oh yeah, here's the statue. If you see how there's like a little bit of wax on the statue's head, if you light up the wax, it will light up the whole area. And honestly, it doesn't make sense for the sequence of the levels in the game, but I kind of wish this sort of thing had come first, and then Earthen Peak had come second, because then, if you put like a little bit of wax around the windmill, where you can burn it to clear all the poison, then you would have looked back to this and been like, oh, wax, fire, light, okay. Most people will probably be curious enough to try to mess with this and not have to have it explained, like, especially with the, messages on the ground helping out. And then if you experiment with this organically, you learn that you can light little things in the environment on fire that aren't just torches. I think that's a transferable skill that you can then bring to other things like the windmill, as long as there's some like visual clue or hint. So again, like I was talking to my friend about this before, and I think we both agree that Dark Souls 2 has a lot of really good ideas sprinkled throughout it. And unfortunately, the execution of some of those ideas is just a little bit clunky and seems sometimes out of order. But yeah, I remember this area being totally pitch black, and I had thought that the whole point of it was kind of like you come in here and it's pitch black, it's really hard to see what you're doing. There are all these traps that you could potentially fall down through, whatever. And as a result, you would have to make the choice of, well, do I want to light this area up and risk Agdane's wrath, or do I, try to make it through the dark, even though it's harder? So I might be misremembering it, or it might be something that they changed for Scholar. Something else I think they... Oh, well, let me read Sarya's comment. Sarya says, I thought he was going to basically one-shot. Yeah, I think he must have like gotten me into a riposte animation or something like that, because he was pummeling me pretty good. But that's one kind of interesting advantage of the healing system, is that when he hit me the first time, I thought, okay, I popped the life gem, and the life gem didn't fully heal me. But then when I got locked into that pummeling animation, because the life gem was still ticking, like the healing over time was still going on, I continued to heal. And even though I had less of a burst heal compared to if I had like chugged an Estus, I was still able to survive the attack, and I probably would have actually died if I had popped the Estus. Sometimes like sustained healing, even if it's numerically less, is still better and more like helpful to you than burst healing, depending on how the enemies are interacting with you. See, like right now, if I wanted to, I could pop the life gem, and then since the healing is going on, I can keep fighting. And if I were to get hit right now, I think it would still... I guess it ran out too quickly. But if I had timed that better, then I might have continued to heal even after getting hit, as opposed to, if I were to have just used the regular Estus heal, then that healing would have been one and done, basically, and I wouldn't have had that extra recovery after the fact. So when people say that the healing system in Dark Souls 2 is broken because of the addition of life gems, I'm like, but how can it be? It adds like so much more variety, so many more like technical options. Tactical, not technical. I do want to talk about um, this area. So I do think that this is one of those areas in the game that would have been even more impactful if it were. Um, 1 second. Just wanted to hear the bells. Even more impactful if it were totally dark, especially given what Agdane said. I don't understand why there's any torches in here at all. Um, this area, in my opinion, should be pitch fucking black. Like that's something that's been narratively established. The characters have commented on it, and it just fits the um, the whole like design and theming of the level so much more. I think you should have basically come into this level. You should have been totally, um, you know, swallowed up by the darkness, and then had to decide whether or not you wanted to bail out. And hearing those bells constantly ringing and hearing the enemies like resurrect themselves or whatever in the background, and just constantly be swatting away at the bells and ringing them over and over again should have driven you into like a light panic, because you at first shouldn't have known what was going on, and you should have like had to figure it out in real time. In my opinion, it's not the only right way to do it, but that's how I remember the level being. So now I need to go back and play the original. That being said, you go back and play like vanilla and see if it was that way and they just changed it. That being said, I really like a lot of the enemy designs and environmental hazard designs in this space. One sec. So for one, the way that those areas with the bells are set up is really quite cool. For one, the bells themselves are things that obviously can be rung by players. If you're not entirely sure what's going on, basically there are all of these stones in the way, and the stones can be destroyed. And the stones are, you know, in close proximity to these bells. If you hit the bells, they will cause one of those powerful like battle mate or like phantasmal mages, you know, the ghost mages, the Lady Sorcerers I think they're called, to appear, and they will keep on spawning as long as the bells ring. So you're basically summoning them with the bell. You can break those stone like whatever they're called, epitaphs, that look like soldiers, in order to stop the Lady soldiers from respawning. And but if you do, you know, you still have to be aware that if you hit a bell, they'll be respawning from everywhere all around you. Now the interesting thing is that the enemies themselves will try to ring the bells as well, but they'll also try to reach you by navigating through the maze of all of those stones. And if an enemy is trying to reach you and there's an obstacle in their path, the game is programmed to have them like try to do like a melee attack to try to destroy the obstacle in front of them. And so what will likely happen is that your character, the enemy, will destroy one of the objects. Like if you go in there and you don't know as a player that you can destroy the stones because the game hasn't told you yet, what will probably happen is that you'll try to navigate to one of those enemies. You'll either try to melee attack the enemy, or they will try to attack you, and they will organically, just naturally, break one of those objects, and then it'll leave it up to you to figure out that you can break other stuff in there too. So it's a simple setup, you know, it's not anything super crazy or whatever, but I think it's very effective, and it's kind of quirky and interesting, and rewards you for kind of keeping a level head and paying close attention to your environment. Now, I've been glossing over, because I don't need this anymore. Probably that would be better. Glossing over something, which is that we've had a lot of really important items come up in this area as well. One of which is the Avalon, which is a triple repeating crossbow, which is something that was introduced in Dark Souls 1. I think doesn't literally show up in Dark Souls 3, but there's a version of it in Dark Souls 3. Interesting that they took the time to kind of incorporate it into the lore by saying that there was this merchant in Volgan who recreated it based on an old design. So this is another little breadcrumb indicating that Dark Souls 2 is a sequel. It's directly connected to the events of the first game. Kind of a nice little inclusion. But we've gotten a bunch of stuff. We've gotten the Imperius armor. Imperius armor is worth talking about for a second because if I remember correctly, there were knights who went to the crypt to try to conquer it and take it over. I guess it does kind of say here that they instead served as crypt guardians. I thought I remembered some narrative about some people coming here to try to pilfer from the tomb, but wound up actually kind of sympathizing with Agdane and his perspective and the tomb itself, and decided to stay and guard it instead. Those massive shields that they were wielding, in addition to just being kind of an interesting enemy design, rather than being equipped with regular weapons, they have two massive shields that can interlock together and serve as a very difficult to penetrate defense as well as an offense. But I think they represent the two different lovers from the kingdoms of Alkin and Ven, who are entombed here, maybe, or something like that. Their narrative extends here for sure. And then this character, not 100% sure who they are, I think it might be Kaitha, is, I believe, the same goddess who's depicted on the entrance to the old witch's Akalair, or whatever it's called, in the Shaded Woods. So a very, very similar pose. Oh, you know what? We definitely see her in the Forest of Fallen Giants, right at the first bonfire where we meet Melantia. So it's quite interesting that this character has received worship and or just prominent imagery all the way down here in the bottom of the crypt to the castle as well, kind of linking the two in terms of their mythology and in terms of their lore. Even if you don't know anything about who this character is or what their lore is, it's still quite interesting to see how a little aspect of her has been taken out of this place and brought into the world above, which is something that Vendrick seems to have kind of a penchant for. And then lots of nice little details in here, like the the little skull lanterns with the flickering lights, and then the obviously it's a tomb, so having bones all over the place makes sense. But I don't know, it looks nice. I like the lighting. I like how restrained and quiet everything is. So quiet. Saria says, wait, do people not think Dark Souls 2 is a sequel? I think they realize that it is, but sometimes, I don't know, there's been some sort of strange commentary from the critiques that I've listened to, where some people kind of think the story is irrelevant, or some people think it's just a copy of the first game. Some people think it has nothing to do with it. Some people think it's irrelevant and is unnecessary and not worth paying attention to anyway. Some people think it is a sequel to the first game, but because there's only one ending, or it is sort of unworthy of discussion because it invalidates the choice that your character might have made, or basically one second, I'm experiencing some of that panic that I was talking about before. I think their perspective is basically Dark Souls 1 gave you a choice of ending, Dark Souls 2 does not, and so that kind of invalidates or makes makes Dark Souls 2 less worthwhile, something like that. I'm doing a bad job of explaining it. Let me try again. So at the end of Dark Souls 1, you can choose to link the fire or choose to walk away from it, and Dark Souls 2 seems to indicate that whatever choice you made doesn't matter, and so if that doesn't matter, and the whole theme of Dark Souls 2 is that your choices don't matter, then Dark Souls 2 doesn't matter narratively either. So basically, the game is telling us that its own story isn't part of the canon or something like that, is one of the takes that I've heard. There are some people who are, I guess they don't think oh, this definitely doesn't count as part of the canon, but they're more confused because some of the stuff is just not made explicit. It's a little nebulous. It only really becomes explicit when you get to New Game Plus and you start finding the souls of characters from the first game. But to be fair, I think people have figured it out for the most part. It's mostly just a minority of people who like individually, personally don't care about the story and like didn't pay attention at all, and then are like not to straw man or whatever, but like, the story is stupid. I don't care about it. It's irrelevant and it has nothing to do with the first game. You know, it's that sort of like complete disengagement from it in principle. I think nobody that I've spoken to directly has had that take. Just to be clear. I need to make sure I go back and find my... See, here's the thing, right? If I follow Mahler's suggestion about, like, healing, if I die here, which is very, very likely, I'm not sure where I'm going, then I'm going to have... Yeah, if I go down there, I'm dead. I'm going to have 0 healing, right? And 0 souls, really, to purchase healing with. So, granted... Sounds like something's rumbling. What is that? Oh, it's just the fires. Granted, oh, okay, yeah, we gotta go up here to... Okay, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Nice little... It's quite a unique shortcut there. Oh yeah, so... If I were to die there, you know, basically having 720, I would lose the 30,000 souls that I had. That 30,000 soul supply could have gotten me back to full health, or full, whatchamacallit, full life gems. But, of course, then I would have no opportunity to level up or to make any purchases or upgrade my weapons or anything like that. So basically, I've only been playing for like half an hour, really. And in that half an hour, I've already, you know, ran out of all of my healing. I think I've been playing pretty carefully. I think I know the environments pretty well, but I'm still, you know, finding myself running out of health pretty consistently. What's funny is that people will say, like, when the game is easy, right, in areas where they're not taking a lot of damage, they're having a surplus of life gems, sometimes they'll say, this game, you know, its healing system is broken because look at how much health I have. But then the moment the enemies actually start to be, like, ramped up and doing damage, then they'll be like, oh, well, the enemies are totally unfair, and it's just, the game is just ganking you. And so it tends to be a very polarized difference in perspective. Now, what I find really interesting about this space is that it is entirely overwhelming. Like, this is one of those areas of the game where I think objectively the game is ganking you and overwhelming you and throwing crazy amounts of enemies at you. They literally respawn over and over again. There's the amount of burst damage that I was just subjected to is crazy, and you know, if I'm not careful, I will get totally overwhelmed. And I am going to die. Probably. Yep. So, but it's funny that this area doesn't come up in critiques that often for whatever reason. Maybe I'm just missing it. But also, I think that there are plenty of opportunities, if you're being careful, to subvert what the game is throwing at you here. You just gotta, like, pay attention to where the enemies are. You gotta pick your battles. And now, actually... Funny enough, though, now that I've lost those souls and I don't feel the need to kind of go back into that area anymore, I guess I don't even really need to, like, I've gotten the items that I need to from that area. I don't even really need to go back there for any reason. So, honestly, you lasted longer than I would, says sorry. Yeah. Well, I was, you know, I have the advantage of having played it previously, but, yeah. Yes, I know. I will say that despite how, you know, cool this area is, it's very, very short. You know, there's like, what, two bonfires that are in close proximity to one another, or at least that one bonfire in those two rooms. There's really not a whole lot here. There's that one little challenge with the bells and the stones, and then there's this final gauntlet to the boss, which is fine. You know, it's not like it has to be some great epic thing necessarily, but at the same time, it does kind of feel like, you know, this is almost its own like separate realm, so to speak. It's something that obviously has like a great amount of significance, a great amount of reverence. It's a very well guarded secret. It's something that the king himself, that's where he decided to kind of hide away, and his knights decided to stay there guarding him. Like, he's one of the most important agents in the story, and this is where he decided to run to when he ran out of hope. And yet you hardly spend any amount of time here at all. It does feel pretty anticlimactic. I do think those fireball enemies are a little overtuned. Like, nothing else in the game right now is hurting me that much. These guys are just destroying me. It does feel a little bit much, you know? I don't think that's inherently a bad thing, because, you know, again, we are very far into the game, and these guys are guarding these guys are guarding the king, so the fact that they would be quite ferocious and difficult to contend with makes perfect sense to me. But at the same time, after a while, it's just kind of like, I understand why people get frustrated with this, because, you know, you have this gauntlet to this final gauntlet before you reach the king, and you figure it'll be this like epic battle that you go through, and then as soon as you've succeeded at it, then you've kind of earned your rite of passage to the next area. But unfortunately, you just constantly get set upon by these enemies that are so quick and at bursting you down. I feel like you kind of have to just run past everything, or just keep going back to the bonfire over and over and over again. The ringing of the bell also does kind of get maddening after a while, which I think is a good thing. I think it's an intended part of the design. I'm gonna be lazy and just warp back to the bonfire. Now, I do really like the placement of that bell ringing hollow, because I think the temptation is to just like run up and smack him and stop him from ringing the bell, but if you don't aim your shot correctly, you'll be the one who winds up ringing the bell, and of course if you do, then you're summoning all those Ladia apostles, or whatever they're called, the kind of ghost-like sword and spell-wielding enemies. Did I not rest? Oh, that's so... Hang on. I forgot about that. Oh, well, actually that's a good thing. So, yeah, I forgot that if you use a homeward bone, you don't actually rest at the bonfire. You just travel to it, which, on the one hand, is kind of annoying, but also is essential for the node bonfire run, because you can always warp back to Majula, and it won't consider it a rest at the bonfire. So you don't ever have to, like, manually walk all the way back through places. I don't even think it would be possible to manually walk back and forth throughout the entire game. Like, I don't think there's a way back from the Bastille. Well, I guess there's the Farfire, the Primal Bonfire, rather. Oh, hey, Loha, how's it going? Good to see you. I'm one of those people who ran through everything. I don't know anything about this area at all. Oh yeah, well this is a great area. It's kind of short. It's a shame that they didn't expand on it. I wish that this was a 1 to 2, or maybe like a 3 to 4 hour area as opposed to a 1 to 2 hour area. But yeah, this is the Undead Crypt. It's last stop before you get to Vendrick, and it's essentially a place where people come to be embraced by the dark, so to speak. The dark is described as being a source of kind of comfort and solace. See, yeah, so I screwed that up. So I think the idea here is that if you are careful as you go through here and you hit the bell, you should be able to kill him and avoid hitting the bell and then avoid having all these enemies spawn. But of course, I screwed that up. The thing is, I think they respawned him, and which is why the bell was ringing over and over and over again beforehand, which kind of defeats the purpose. Like, I feel like the skill check or whatever should be one of attention. Like, did you notice that there was a guy here, or did you hear the sound of the bell ringing? And if you did, then did you take the steps to silence its ringing? And when you took those steps, were you careful about your environment and made sure that you weren't like careless enough to hit the bell by mistake? And yeah, I don't know if they respawned him or if he just, like, another one showed up or whatever, but that does feel like a troll. Not saying it's a mistake on the behalf of the developers or anything like that, but it does feel like, hey, I passed the test, why are you punishing me for this, And I think that, damn it, that is how I think people feel often when they say that the game is, like, unfair or, like, gangster or stuff like that. The way that so that actually helps me empathize, right? Like, the way that I feel about that. There's another one. Yeah, okay, so honestly, I'm not a fan of that. I think the test there should be, if you are careful and observant, then you should be rewarded by having destroyed that hollow, and that should make it so that the bell doesn't get rung again, in my opinion. I find this quite irritating, actually. Because after a certain point, it's one thing to have to feel like you failed the environmental challenge of a level, and you have to go through again and, like, fight the base enemies there, but to feel like every time you go through the level, you also have to fight all the fucking respawning enemies every single time, and they just keep respawning indefinitely, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just, like, baked into the experience. Unless there's something I'm missing. But it feels like, I don't know. There must be something I'm missing. Not sure what, though. Let's see. Honestly, I think that if these mages didn't do so much goddamn burst damage, then it would probably be a little bit more tolerable. It's the fact that they respawn endlessly, and also, I wonder if it has something to do. So it seems out of character to me for From Software to just, like, design it that way. So I'm wondering if there's, like, a gimmick where you're supposed to stay in the shadows or something. Although now I'm not hearing the bell anymore. I wonder. I don't. So in the original, in vanilla, I don't think this Dragon Rider was here, and I do think the Dragon Riders make much better, like, just beefy standard enemies, than they do bosses. So I think it's probably a good thing that they were included more in Scholar. Like, there's a few more of them kind of sprinkled throughout the world, and I think that's a welcome inclusion as far as I'm concerned. Although he's kicking my ass pretty hard. Alright, I know I have a couple of comments to catch up on. I will as soon as I'm done with this guy. I can't remember if this guy respawns, but usually these types of enemies don't. So I want to see if there's anything unique that he drops. I'm just not having a good day with this guy. Being too conservative with my everything, I think. Not being aggressive enough. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Sorry says the temptation is to run up and smack him. It was probably funny that it should have been for me, but my imagination allows me to visualize that. You just, like, scurry, 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 smack. And I mean, like, it is there. He is really annoying. It's kind of hard to avoid the temptation, but yeah, gotta be careful about that. It is nice though that you get the option to rush the fog gate if you don't figure out the bell thing. Yeah, it's true. This is one of those areas that I'm like, I always am kind of hesitant to assume developer intentions and be like, this is the way you're supposed to play this, because I think usually the game is pretty flexible, and the way you're supposed to play is whatever way you find like satisfying and whatever way works for you, right? But this is one of those things where it's like, I think there is a strong argument that an intended way of beating this is just to dash through, because it seems feasible and it also seems incentivized. And now, like, now that I have fought through the gauntlet, I just have like not enough health to deal with the boss on the other side of this. And the boss is one of the trickier ones. I think most players will find that to be the case, so I really should go in with a lot more healing than fucking 2 Estus plus 4. Let's see. So I'll probably just have to go and deal with that. This fragrant branch of your... Yeah, I haven't really been commenting on the items that much, but I've been getting some interesting things. So we've got the blue flame, which is a really cool sword that you can use as a sorcery catalyst as well. Some kind of history about the Lady Apostles. I should probably just should have kept that on to begin with. Actually, dark quartz might make more sense at this point. And then, what else do we got here? Don't need souls as much as I need maybe steel protection. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is though that like I picked armor for the visuals and I haven't upgraded it at all. This is not a particularly sturdy armor set, so I could have put a lot more effort into, you know, strengthening myself up. I've been whining about how hard these enemies hit, but I haven't been actually using any like defensive buffs or tailoring my armor appropriately. Anyway, Loha says it's one of those I know it's a trap but I'm still going moments. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, I can't help it, you know. I need to get in trouble, I guess. Now, unfortunately, I don't have, like, my weapon is infused with dark, so I think I'm gonna have to try to use my club. It has a lightning infusion. Actually, no, wait. It's gonna deal less damage, but I think we should stick with the sword. I upgraded it after all. Oh, it's +8. It's not bad. Let me see. Where did I put my shield? Yeah, my shield as well I don't think is optimized either. Right, like it's oh yeah. Okay, so if you look in the upper right hand corner there, it shows that it's only got 66% defense against piercing, as opposed to this, which has 100. So I like, yeah, part of the reason why I've been so like taking so much damage from those knights is because I haven't been paying attention to my stats at all. I've just been going for, you know, armor style points. So I'm gonna keep in mind. Oh, this is interesting. I wonder why Agdane wants us to help put down Delstadt. Okay, thankfully the cough has I think gone away for now. Not to jinx it or anything. I'm probably gonna die here, but still worth giving it a shot. Checking out the boss, learning the mechanics or whatever. There's a guy. He's just crouching there, menacingly. Already not looking too good. Yep. Oh, I'm doing no damage to him at all. I do like the fact that the camera is actually zoomed up a bit. Actually, I'm not doing bad. I wonder if poison will have any effect on him. Maybe, because there was poison like right outside the boss fight door. Probably gonna need more than that though. Oh yeah, I love that. The use of the weapon as a bell to kind of summon in the dark is so great. The way that he infuses himself with the dark. That weapon too is just fucking cool. Okay, so poison is effective actually. Quite effective. Wow, it's like eating away does help quite a bit. Agdane's done for, I'm sure. Oh shit, me too if I'm not careful. Oh, I mean, of course it does, but like, I just want to appreciate the fact that the hammer makes a little bell noise when it hits the ground. What are you doing? Oh. Whoa, shit, I didn't know they had homing projectiles. Hang on. I feel like I should eat like a mushroom or something. Nope. Damn, okay. Because I'm so close, but I don't think I can beat him without some extra healing. Have anything? Yes, okay. Yep, bad timing. Maybe not, maybe not. Can I do it? Okay. Might be able to do it. Play it safe. See, that's why it's cool to have like different healing options. Different, if I popped the Elizabeth mushroom, it could probably get me through quite comfortably. So he's not actually all that complex in terms of his movesets. He does have some pretty quick. He made like another little bell sound. Okay, so I like that. That attack is actually. Hang on 1 second. I'm gonna finish him off. I don't want to comment on that. There we go. That wasn't too bad. So that that attack that he made when he puts his staff down on the ground and summons dark around himself, and then fires off that kind of burst of dark. I think my inclination anyway, and I think quite possibly many players' inclinations will be to try to run away from that and just take cover or something like that. But that's actually the quote-unquote wrong decision to make, right? Because it's going to pursue you and do a shitload of damage to you. If you actually have the courage or wherewithal or whatever to turn around though and like get behind him and not be intimidated by the fact that he's summoning energy around himself, then I think that you can subvert the whole situation, avoid the damage, and actually use his charge up as an opportunity to empower yourself. So I really like that they put that in there. I also really love this corridor. Again, I don't have all of the knowledge to be able to explain what the symbolism is here with all these figures, but isn't that just like a cool, like super creepy, eerie hallway? The juxtaposition of these kind of frail, lithe, almost spectre-like figures hanging from the ceiling inverted, and then these much bulkier, kind of forlorn, hollowed out, creepy looking, vaguely human. I mean, they're human faces, but something looks wrong about them. Something looks very off. Everything is just very eerie and cold. I love it. Anyway, yeah, I think Velstad is a great boss fight. Doesn't quite reach the heights, obviously, of a lot of the stuff that's in Bloodborne or Elden Ring or whatever in terms of mechanical complexity. It's more like a siege boss fight. Like, you don't have to be pulling out all kinds of crazy maneuvers. You just need to pay close attention to what's happening, to like read the room, tactically speaking, and to plan your attack. Use the resources that you have available. It'll be fine. It's not that hard. You just need to kind of pay attention. And I like that sort of boss fight. I like the fact that it doesn't require you to memorize a bajillion different attacks like Rolana or something like that. I'm also looking at the etchings or bas reliefs or whatever you call them along the borders. It looks like a bunch of frolicking, creepy children, which is interesting. Anyway, Saria says, probably going to die here, but it's worth a shot. Imagine this is how the MC talks in universe in these games. Yeah, I imagine they're probably a lot less optimistic about it. Loa says, love these kind of movies. You're encouraged to do something aside from roll and block. Yeah, exactly. I mean, those are good verbs. And I mean, like, Sekiro is basically just like learn when to parry the game, and it's one of the best action games ever in my opinion. But at the same time, it's like giving the player more opportunity to. I like the fact that this game lets you use walk as a very viable combat tactic. Like sometimes the best thing to do is just to like slowly meander around an enemy while he's doing like all of his pirouetting and dancing and all that stuff and showing off. Also, this is such a small thing, but like I just want to appreciate this. Look what happens. There's this little pillar, this shitty little pillar, right? And some of the stones and some of the debris that gets thrown around the environment. You can see my foot kind of clips right through it. There's no collision to it. I'm not bouncing off of it. But if I go up to this one, this is one of the static parts of the geometry that's always going to be there, right? You go up, doop, 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 oop, little foot goes up, and my character bends at the knee, and my character's shoe also bends at the, or like foot bends at the ankle joint, and my stance shifts, and my character is resting their weight on this little pillar now. That's so cool. That's actually quite difficult to do, especially since the foot seems to be like skewed slightly at an angle such that it's resting along the angle of the mesh, like that at that diagonal. The getting that to work is kind of tricky, and I don't think they do it as well in Dark Souls 3 even. So well done to whoever spent like hundreds of hours getting that shit to work. It actually is really impressive from a dev standpoint. And look at the cloth too. I mean, I know like cloth simulation is relatively trivialized at this point, but still, like this is 10 years ago, and look how the cloth like very nicely and neatly drapes over the shoe. It's like deformed according to the shape of the shoe as well. It's not like my shoe isn't poking through the mesh, you know. Yeah, just really good. I really appreciate those little details. Saria says, do you think Velstad's role changed? Like he's not attacking you in order to protect his king, who is dead, but he's trying to prevent you from possibly letting this thing loose in the world. I think it could be, yeah. Like it could be a bit of both. Could be one or the other. I think, if I remember, part of the thing with the soldiers is that, like one interpretation of why they decide to defend him is just out of loyalty. Like they literally are just very, very loyal boys, and they don't want to leave their master, and so they stay here because it's just the right thing to do in their mind. But also, I think part of it is that they don't want other people finding out what happened to him. Like they don't want his reputation being tarnished because the rest of the kingdom might still have a chance. But if people in general found out what happened to him, like if even the king, if even the guy who looked into the soul could fail, then everyone else is doomed, that sort of thing. But I actually like your idea as well quite a bit, that they're trying to keep him in as well as keep you out. So I'm going to just let the music play and the atmosphere kind of kick in for a minute here. Before I comment too much, let's go and see if we can talk to him. Oh, right, I need the Rand's kinship or Ashen Mishtark. Okay, so... Oh, hi. Forgot about that.
This ring is the symbol of the king. Use it to gain passage through the king's gate and venture to the far east. Bearer of the curse, if you are to be the next monarch, then one day you will walk those grounds. really knowing why.
Okay. So, to me, that is one of the most important, for lack of a better word, moments in the game. Um, Now, we already sort of had like a mini fake out of. I think a lot of people would be expecting to meet Vendrick in whatchamacallit. To meet Vendrick in the castle, where we meet the. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name. Oh yeah, on the Looking Glass Night. And so there's a little bit of a subversion there, I guess you could say. But um, even more so, you're kind of expecting some sort of a climactic fight at this point, right? Like, okay, you faked me out once before, but now, like, we've actually gone to the place where we were told the king is. There's no way you're going to do it a second time, right? And we do kind of get the big climactic boss fight with the royal armored dude, but it's not what we expected. It's just some guy that we don't really know much about necessarily called Vilstad. And then when you see the king, I mean, so obviously, you know, easy answer, or I guess like facetious response might be this is just Gwyn again, because when you you know, finally get to the kiln of the first flame and you meet up with Gwyn, he is a shell of his former self. You know, he's obviously not doing too well. The fight with him is a climactic fight, but it is, you know, not against Gwyn in his prime. It's not this sort of regal.
Human, light.
It doesn't feel like you're fulfilling this prophecy and like getting, like inheriting the proud king's will and becoming the next monarch. It feels like you're putting someone down who's just like barely clinging to life and suffering, and you're like ending them in a kind of undignified way. But Gwyn is still wearing his armor. He's still proudly brandishing his sword. Like, he can still do a bunch of like ferocious attacks and stuff. He's still him in some to some extent. He's just hollowed and faded. Vendrick is like barely himself. He's pretty much entirely gone. It feels really I don't know how to describe it. Like a certain kind of gross. Like, you saw something very, very private and intimate that you weren't supposed to, that you don't belong in. I don't know. Like, you stumbled into a hospital room and somebody was giving birth, and you saw them in that moment. Somebody you don't even know, and they very vulnerable and very exposed, and like, yeah, you don't belong there. But there's more to it, because he's like completely broken, completely hollowed, and it's like embarrassing, right? Um, and yeah, the sad piano music comes in, but I'll talk about that more in the music stream. But it's not mixed with like there's no regalness to it, right? There's no rhythm to it. It doesn't flow really. It just kind of lingers. It's discordant. It's like unnerving. Everything about that scene is just so like nauseating and uncomfortable, which is perfect, right? It completely turns the image that we have of Vendrick on his head, while also continuing a theme like the encountering the kind of broken king that Dark Souls 1 introduced. It's one of those moments that really makes me feel like Dark Souls 2 understands how to be a sequel to Dark Souls, if that makes sense. It really nails that feeling of meeting Gwyn in the kiln, but does something like even more gross in a good way with it.
What do you require, human? You have met the king, have you? Life is never easy, never fair. Even more so on this path you have chosen. May you find your peace one day. Take these with you. You may need them as proof of your visit here. In the past, the former king of light, how queer.
Yeah, so I Dark Drift is a really interesting weapon. I think it's a katana, right? That, yeah. Katana of Grave Warden Agdane has a crystal clear blade and a strong attack that slices through shields. This katana was originally wielded by the one who gave us the first death and still exists imperfectly between planes. Oh, one of the coolest items in the game. Also really fucking weird because this is telling us that Nito from Dark Souls 1, the giant skeleton dude, um, was running around with a fucking ghostly katana. And that's a bit of a difficult image to reconcile for whatever reason. That's kind of weird. But, yeah, I do like the fact that they're expanding on Nito's lore, and there seems to be quite a bit going on with him in Dark Souls 1, but quite a bit of it is very vague, and at least to me is not something that I feel like I fully grokked when I played through. But here they're kind of making him out to be more of a like a caretaker sort of figure, interestingly enough. Like, he's not just a representation or an avatar of death. He's not just some sort of like creepy skeleton man who goes around spreading death with his creepy eyeball lizards. He actually is described as weaving death, right? Death is not just like a plague that's being inflicted on people in an aggressive sense, as much as it is like a natural force that he's kind of guiding and shepherding. And in certain situations, it's like again a comforting and kind of soothing thing that he's doing. And he's created this race of people, the Finitos, that would be like the Finito and then the Milfinito, both of them having Nito in their name, in order to basically continue his work and not just spread death by killing everything, but I guess like kind of shepherd in and coax in death when and where it's needed. Which is interesting. It gives him, I think, it kind of expands on his character in an interesting way. It makes him, again, like more of this like weird, kind of counterintuitive caretaker, if that makes any sense.
You've been long away. Well,
Any more stuff? Oh yeah, okay, good. Let's see. Dragon Bone, Hitstone, Boltstone. I do like lightning a lot. I'm gonna get one of these. And I'm going to get one of these in case I want to mix it up a little later. So.
visit me again.
Oh, wait. Did she have any chunks? Yes. Okay, so I think I should be able to upgrade my longsword to +10. Can I? Yes, okay. So let me go. I don't think I can infuse with him, right? Yep. So I'll go to McDuff, I'll infuse, and then we'll go get going. So again, not to kind of belabor the point too much, but I'm supposed to be, spending all my money on Estus, on life gems, but already I feel like I don't want to do that because I've have shit I want to upgrade, I want to experiment with. So I can't force myself into this like boring, rigid way of playing. I'm sorry. I'm saying I'm sorry mockingly to people who expect the game to be played that way. What was I doing? Oh yeah, infuse weapon. And to be clear, also, I'm not let's go with lightning. I like lightning a lot. I'm still only scratching the surface of the different things I could be doing to like upgrade my shit, right? For example, if I can upgrade my armor at all. Reinforced weapon or armor. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I haven't even fully upgraded one set of armor. I barely fully upgraded my weapon, and I'm now pretty much out of all the souls that I got from defeating this late game boss without leveling up at all. The idea that I can now just sustain myself indefinitely on life gems is just kind of ridiculous. Hmm. Yeah, no, sorry, I want to advocate for people to play the game in whatever way they find like most genuinely fun and enjoyable and engaging. And if folks um, genuinely get the most enjoyment and fulfillment out of playing with a very restricted, what I would call restricted, playstyle, then that's great. You found the fun. You found the thing that works for you. But I think the contention that I'm pushing back against, so to speak, is of course the idea that the game's healing system is entirely broken, like objectively and completely broken, because you can buy infinite amounts of life gems. It just doesn't work because it doesn't take into account, like, that feedback doesn't make any sense when you take into account how the actual game's economy works.
Drangleic is no longer.
Hmm?
Brave undead, seek the throne. Follow the symbol of the monarch, and do what must be done. Brave undead, follow the symbol.
That's not ominous at all. Yeah, I do find that so I'm kind of torn about this because on the one hand, I don't find Nashandra to be a particularly well implemented villain. Yes, she's very important to Vendrick, and especially in the DLC, that's explained a bit better than it was in the base game, in my opinion. Yes, she is an interesting figure in and of herself, and obviously she's, being a fragment of Manus, it's highly significant as well. It's not like she's no one or she comes out of nowhere. She has no place or anything like that. She does have a place in the story. But at the same time, it does kind of feel like she comes out of nowhere to a certain extent. And I don't know. I wish there had been a little bit more elaboration, I guess, on her character. But that being said, it is kind of interesting. It is sort of like a From Software trope, I guess, like a stylistic thing that they enjoy doing. For example, Dark Souls 3 DLC spoilers ahead, just in case you haven't played that. The final boss of that game was also just kind of some random person who you just barely met and barely interacted with. And if you actually think about the implications of that fight, they're quite significant, and the boss makes a lot of sense, and I think is very, like, almost beautiful in its own right. But also, you have to kind of dig around to find that answer, that explanation, and it's... I couldn't help but feel like, if the final boss were what's his name, Zigward, that it would probably be more emotionally impactful than the dude that we wound up with. You know what I mean? But anyway, so I've never done things in this order before. Usually, I wait until I do all of the miscellaneous chores that I need to before I face off against the boss. But I wanted to see what would happen if I did it in a bit of a different order this time, so let's see how it goes. So if you're not familiar, basically there's, especially with the DLC, there's sort of 3 final bosses that you can fight in sequence. Should I go with here? Boys, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And the first of them is the Throne Watcher and Throne Defender. Then there is Nashandra, and then there's Aldia. So let's see. This is one of those bosses that, honestly, I probably should have fought solo. Actually, yeah. Sorry, Benny. I want to try and fight the solo because this is a boss that comes up quite a bit when people describe the encounter design in the game as being like unfair, because hang on one second. Okay, good. Um, you know, actually, yeah, I don't want to spoil it too much. I want to fight those guys solo and see how well I do, just because there's been a certain critique about the way that this game handles fights with multiple enemies simultaneously, and I want to see how I feel about them just going in. I will say, I absolutely love areas like this in Souls games, and this is no exception. This feels very somber, but also like oddly terrifying. Like you're going someplace that maybe you're not supposed to be. It doesn't really feel like, you know, you're wanted here in a way. But paradoxically, at the same time, it feels like it's drawing you in. It feels like this is what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to be. But where you're supposed to be is a place that's sort of, in a weird way, like hostile to human intrusion. It feels too ancient, too primal, too, I don't know, too removed, I guess. At least to me. It's entirely subjective. It's just part of the read that I get from it. Oh. Hang on. Let's see. Basically, to kind of give it away a little bit, part of the criticism was that since these guys attack as a duo, you basically have no time to attack yourself and have to just constantly wait, because anytime you attack, you're punished for it. And I do find myself being quite cautious, but so far it's not too bad. They're staying pretty well grouped up, and can even, yeah, if I time it right, I can even like get off multiple like attacks on both of them at the same time. I don't know what she's doing. Let's see. I like the fact that she has a second phase. I'm assuming she, because the armor looks more quote-unquote like stereotypically feminine, but could be. I'm just assuming their gender. I'm not sure. I wonder if these are supposed to be like the rulers of Alkin and Ven, who have now kind of been compelled to. Holy shit. Oh, right. Did she heal herself? I think so. I will say the fight isn't like amazing, but it's doable. And she's down for the count, it looks like. Okay. I mean, granted, again, like, I have a +10 sword. I'm using one of the better kind of more consistent weapons in the game. I've played the game before. I kind of know what to expect. But I've heard so much about how that fight is just like unreasonable and boring, because all you do is just stand around and wait for one chance to attack, and unless it's been massively like retooled or whatever since the game first came out, that felt very manageable. It felt a lot easier than fucking Mitha, for example. Right? I don't know. I don't get what the problem is. I'm kind of confused. Saria says, do we ever get explanations on why those characters are so big? So I'm going to reference something that Vati, I think, said a long time ago in one of his videos, Vati video. And I think, you know, there's two ways to look at it. One is that there are actually physically different races of people, and they're just like, you know, if you were to take it super literally, there are genetic differences. There's genetic like like I said, races of people. There are the giants, or I think Loki refers to them as the mesials or the medials or something like that. And then there are the normal human beings, right? Like giant-sized people. Because then, of course, there is also the species of giants, which are separate. um, and if you go to Lordran in Dark Souls 1, you'll notice that there are two sets of stairs that go up the main area of Anor Londo. Anywhere you go, there's like a main thoroughfare or whatever where people are walking and just hanging out in Anor Londo. There's two sets of stairs. One is for giants and one is for humans. One is really big and one is like normal human foot sized. So that kind of supports the idea that there are actually just two different size classes of humanoid things that live in this world. Maybe they're both human in the traditional sense of the word, but also they are they're not just human, right? There's like two different versions of being human. The other example that Vati provided, if I recall correctly, is that it's more of an abstract representation of strength, and there might be some precedence for this in like Japanese folklore, that characters who are more powerful are just depicted as being larger because that gives them more, like physical presence or whatever, and it has much more to do with let's leave it at that. Much more to do with their overall like thematic relevance and impact and stuff like that than it does with their actual genetics or something. I don't think it's ever explicitly mentioned in the game apart from characters being called giant or whatever. I think it's just I was kind of distracted, so that was like a long-winded explanation with me trying to say like characters are as big as they need to be in order to feel as big as they're described as being. It's probably the easiest way to put it. And you might be able to find some more concrete explanations, or it might be better to just look at it as something a bit more abstract. So there's three main areas left. There's Aldia's Keep, there's the Dragon Eyrie and Dragon Shrine, and then that's pretty much it. We're off to the final gauntlet, I believe. I don't remember the way. Now, of course, there is still quite a lot of stuff that we could do, we could check out. For example, I haven't gone back and talked to the Milfanito, or like freed the Milfanito from, ouch, from the castle. I haven't, and then, so like if you go back to where the embedded was, that like creepy character who was writhing around attached to that door, if we were to do that, we could free the lady in there and then go back to the Shrine of Amana and then talk to one of the Milfanito there and get a reward from that. There's a couple other things like that around the world that we haven't done yet. We haven't done the Dark Diver Covenant. So now that we visited those locations, we could go delve into the abyss and find the Dark Lurker and stuff like that. So really, when I say we haven't gone and found hidden things like Havel Set and the giants down in the abyss, there's actually quite a lot more to explore in the game that we haven't cracked into. So even though we are nearing the end of our journey and probably will be wrapping up around the 40 or 50 hour mark, we still, there's still a ton of stuff to do. Maybe not a ton, but there's still quite a substantial amount of stuff to do, let alone, anything multiplayer related. There's still plenty of stuff to do single player related. So I feel like maybe something the game doesn't get enough credit for is just how much stuff there is to do and how consistently interesting a lot of it is. Learn my lesson. Okay. So you might have noticed as well that one of those little kobolds, the little petrifying uh, fiends that was hopping around on the ground, also dropped another affinity spell, and those affinity spells are actually really good, um, dark related spells. And in this game, the way the spell system works, if you're not familiar, is you notice that in the upper left part of my inventory over there, on the bottom left corner of the screen, you'll see something that says Fireball 8, and that means that basically when you purchase a Fireball spell or you find one, you will get X number of uses of that spell every time you rest at the bonfire. So if I equip a Fireball spell, I'll get to use it 8 times, and then I'll have to rest at the bonfire or use an item to restore my spell charges before I get another one. If I purchase 3 different Fireball spells, so like if I find one in the world and then I find a vendor and then he gives me 2 Fireball spells, then I can use it 24 times if I equip them all. Right? So the more instances of the spell that I find, the more times I buy it, the more I can use it over the course of a given run. And so each of those little enemies drops another instance of that very powerful spell, which is really cool and quirky. Like, I don't know if there's a lore reason for it. I'm sure there is. But that being said, regardless, it's still just kind of a funny thing. And it's nice that you can actually farm additional spell uses from the environment. Now, I actually never noticed that before, that there's some sort of prism up there. That's really cool. Yeah. Huh. Kind of beautiful, honestly. Saria says, I love the shaded wood. Yeah, it's really beautiful. Haunting, beautiful, charming. I will note that we got like a lot of fire seeds towards the end of the game, whereas in Dark Souls 1, you could upgrade your pyromancy glove in bursts, and it could feel a little unbalanced at times, but for the most part you were getting a pretty slow, consistent increase in power throughout the game. I feel like a lot of the power of the pyromancy glove is heavily weighted towards the end of the game. I haven't been paying that close attention, but it feels like you just get a bunch of fire seeds for the end of the game, so I feel like maybe pyromancy runs in this game might feel a little less rewarding, less consistent, just because of the lack of upgrades. Like, you can upgrade your staff with Titanite or your catalyst, or your chime if you're doing a faith or int build. But you can only upgrade your pyromancy glove with fire seeds, and so I feel like if I were a pyromancer, I would be a little disappointed by how sparse the upgrades are and how late in the game they come in this game. Here's our old friend. Yeah, she's doing.
Who are you? Oh. No, forgive me. I know you. Yes, of course. How goes your journey? I know not what you seek in this faraway land, but I pray for your safety. Please take these.
Oh, wow.
Consider this thanks for keeping me sane. My name is Lucatiel. I beg of you, remember my name, for I may not myself. My name is Lucatiel. I beg of you, remember my name, for I may not myself.
I really like that that little addition to the story. She seems to indicate that it's your relationship with her that's helped her endure this long. Like your conversations with her, your fighting with her, your remembering her, and her ability to recognize you is just a little trickle of extra sanity, like reminding her of her identity. And so, sort of just by existing, like just by walking alongside her and acknowledging her, you've actually helped her keep her shit together. And like, I don't know, I've definitely felt that sometimes, not to be too cheesy or whatever, but sometimes, somebody will give you a compliment. Have you ever been I don't know, you're just like in a bad mood and you're out of the store, you're not even like paying attention to the world around you, and is like, oh dude, nice shirt, that's awesome, yeah, I love that band, they're great, okay, bye, have a good day. And something about that just like tiny little moment of connection, you'll never see that person again, and it's like not a big deal on the one hand, but the fact that like they took the time to acknowledge you and to connect with you on a mutual subject of interest, it's just like it'll stick in your head the rest of the day and be like, oh yeah, that was kind of nice today, huh? Wasn't it? I feel like that same kind of vibe is being shared, but it's with Lucatiel's story. But of course, it's much more impactful here because you need those little scraps of humanity to be able to hold on to keep yourself from going hollow. So this, I believe, is Lucatiel's brother. I've heard someone suggest that maybe it's actually Lucatiel herself, just in a different form. But she said she came here to look for her brother specifically. So I don't think so. I think it is her brother. But that, of course... Well, it's interesting. I wonder, like, what her brother was doing here. I don't know. Maybe it is actually her. She's just kind of taking on the personality of her brother because he doesn't, yeah, I mean, like, we got a human effigy, and we know that the human effigies can be used to kind of rewrite your, Oh, well, she's just here. Okay.
My name is Luke.
Okay, so it wasn't her. What happens if I rest here? Oh, she's gone. So that's interesting. I feel like she probably should have disappeared. I feel like she probably shouldn't have been at the bonfire. Just then, that felt a little off somehow. And I wonder if it has to do with the limitation of the engine, because conversations with NPCs and like NPC states and stuff only seem to wind up advancing once you reload an area. So I wonder if, like, in the storyboards or whatever, they were supposed to, or they had hoped to have her disappear when her brother shows up, and it's just a limitation of the engine. They couldn't do it without killing her and then spoiling things, like killing her off screen, which would have made that, you know, the death sound and everything. She used her own fast travel. Yeah, sorry, I like that. She used flying Raijin to teleport, or like Kamui to teleport in and mess with you. Let's take a look at her sword just real quick to see. Something I want to talk about is, I think I've been listening to the Dark Souls 3 and 2 soundtracks, and I think there's a clue in the shaded, what the hell is it called? The Curse-Rotted Great Woods theme, I think, has elements of a couple of themes from Dark Souls 2, and there's a clue as to the lore of the tree in there. And you also can get this sword. You can get Lucatiel's sword by transposing the soul of the Curse-Rotted Greatwood. So it's called a Hollow Slayer Greatsword, but it's the same thing. And so I'm wondering what that might mean. Let's see. Greatsword issued to the Proud Knights of Mira's official order. This one is wielded by Lucatiel. Greatsword demands advanced skill and a rare and unique sword technique. Yeah, interesting. This is one thing that I do wonder about. Like, it doesn't bother me, but I know somebody, this probably like severely impacted their enjoyment of the game, which is that Lucatiel is holding on to her sword, and she gives you her own sword. She's wearing her armor, and she also gives you her armor. And to me, like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me that that's not like happening literally, you know, on screen. Like, she's not disrobing and giving you her stinky armor to wear, like, because it's more about the symbolic, like, acknowledgement and passing of the torch. I don't need everything to be implemented in a way that perfectly makes sense. But it might have been even better, potentially, or might have also been okay if you don't get her equipment until after you beat Azlatiel and come back to find her. And maybe she has a note that says, like, don't come find me, I've gone hollow, but I'll leave these for you, goodbye, thank you, something like that, right? You don't have to do it that way. but it might avoid making things like for the nitpicky people like me that that usually have to have everything be diegetically making sense. Yeah, so if you I have no idea what's in these carts or why they're shaking, but there's always the implication that there are two people having fun in there, or possibly more, and so it's always nice to see, like, funny to see what little messages people come up with. Weakness, stabbing in the back. There's usually one that says like thrust required ahead or something. Anyway, juvenile humor, great. Humor I enjoy quite a bit. So this is Aldia's Keep. Really interesting area. Another very short, very small, like, segment of the game. Doesn't feel fully fleshed out in my opinion, but also it has some really interesting ideas in it. And again, to kind of reference what I was talking about with my friend previously, another instance of this game just having a lot of interesting concepts that are worth celebrating or enjoying, but also it's a bit unfortunate that they didn't get fully fleshed out and feel complete. Now, I remember in Dark Souls 2, in the vanilla version of the game, when you came in here, this bone dragon would come to life and attack you and scare you. That's what I recall, and I think it was a really cool and kind of startling moment that added a lot of atmosphere to this level, kind of set the stage for what you were going to see going forward. And then they changed it in Scholar such that you now need to, like, activate torches or some shit, which feels like a very bizarre change to me, but we'll see.
Well, you're nicely hollowed, aren't you? Are you tormented by memories? Burdened by guilt? Now the question, are you ready for more? If you are, then we ought to talk. This contains my power. Long ago, this naive vessel of mine set about devising new spells. The fool dreamt of bringing new forms of magic into the world. But instead, he created me. Mostly by chance, but he did a fine job, I must say. What he sought was strength, and so I decided to demonstrate. While my vessel slept, I'd find my mark and hunt him down. But my vessel did not approve, and so while I slept, he sealed the both of us away. No, I don't have anything against humans, but how is it that you go about defining good and evil? I'm only using what the gods gave me. How can that be so wrong? So what say you to a spot of murder on my behalf? If you don't, I'll leave this place and take more lives. Many more. I couldn't give a fig either way, so what's your choice? Yes, I see how very kind of you. I want you to kill a merchant named Gilligan. A greedy, foul man. He won't be missed, I assure you. Yes, bring me a ladder miniature as proof. Is the only person who'd have such an odd knick-knack. I want you to kill him and
You burdened by guilt, asks Saria. Actually, I left my keys. If you could just, if you're hollowed out, I really can't get into my house without those keys. Yeah, it's like, sir, this is a Wendy's. Why are you hunched over muttering to yourself about murder? So this character, for folks who are not familiar, is really interesting in that, for two reasons. One is that they are a completely different character if you talk to them when you're hollowed and when you're not. So let's talk to him quickly now that I've used humanity.
I haven't said anything strange, have I? I have absolutely no intention of leaving here. Do not attempt to help me. Just let me sit here and wither quietly away. Please, just stay away. No, please, don't come near me. Nothing good will come of it. Just leave me alone, please. Leave this place and leave me be. Please. Please.
So, very interesting character. Something that they haven't quite done in previous games before. Granted, there are, other characters in From Software games, like the, what's his name, like the Despicable Beggar or something like that, in Dark Souls, in Bloodborne, that will seem friendly to you, but if you aren't careful with him, he'll follow you back to the Cathedral Ward and then attack other people there, and possibly reward you for it as well. Then there's also the, what's his name, Yurt in Demon Souls will do something similar, go around killing people. So the idea of having an NPC that goes around, and then Lautrec in Dark Souls 1, the idea of having an NPC that goes around killing other people is not entirely novel. But this guy has two completely different personalities based on your character's state. He also offers you the opportunity to be complicit in the murders and conduct the murders yourself. And also, you can actually go to Gilligan, for example, and just purchase the ladder miniature without killing him. All of the marks that he gives you, if you pay attention, if you go through their inventory, through their quest lines, you can actually get the items that he wants as proof. So you can trick him into thinking that you've done the murders when you haven't. So it's a rare instance of some actual, kind of, it's the sort of thing that you would see in Baldur's Gate or something like that, right? Where you're given a quest that sort of at its face value has one easy solution, but then it's entirely up to you how to engage with it. Then, of course, you can go here, and then if you pull this lever back, it'll release Navlan, and then he'll start hunting you. You completely turn off that quest line, and all of a sudden you have this hunter that's pursuing you through the game. These messages, which are usually left by other players, are actually, I think, canonically left by good mode Navlan, so unhallowed Navlan. That's his name, the guy who's behind the wall, just to be clear. And he seems to have put all of these messages, these frantic messages, all over the place, just begging you not to disturb him. So, overall, really interesting character. I wish they had done more things like that in the future. And honestly, my number one request or desire for From Software games going forward, they've already done such a great job of creating beautiful worlds with gorgeous vistas and atmospheres and, I don't know, just well-crafted environments, very great at stirring up emotion with their set design and everything like that. They've also made incredible combat systems, incredible challenging bosses and encounters and all that. But one thing they haven't really done a whole lot of is, look at that chest off to the side a little bit, is really done a whole lot of role-playing stuff. They just haven't actually, I know all these games are called RPGs, they're called role-playing games, and to a certain extent there is role-playing in them, and there's character expressiveness and customization, but, compared to something like a Larian game or like a Fallout New Vegas or whatever, which, granted, I don't want Dark Souls to veer that heavily in that direction. I don't want it to become a full-on traditional CRPG by any means. But compared to games like that, there's very little opportunity for you to actually influence the plot. You either help characters or you don't. You either do quest lines or optional bosses, or you don't. You don't really have much choice and much expression. And Navlan here is actually one of the more intricate quest lines that you have. So, in the same way that Vendrick seems to have done a Roman Empire sort of thing, that's so cool, by the way, and gone around kind of collecting strong warriors and stuff like that to be beneficial to him. Aldia seems to have done that, but with more of an emphasis on magic and weird creatures and shit like that. So he was more of a researcher, and his research was more into those sorts of powers, as opposed to the, I guess, more physical martial power that Vendrick sought. And so, it's interesting to find that these mirrors on the wall both look and function the same as the mirror that's held by the Looking Glass Knight. Now, whether or not that means that Aldia, invented or designed the mirrors, or if he found the, Looking Glass Knight and then decided to sort of figure out how it worked, and then brought his mirror back for experimentation and made more of them or something like that. I'm not clear, but it is cool as we go through here to see what the ways in which Aldia served as a foil to his brother Vendrick, and the sorts of things he tried to collect and study. The mirrors themselves are just a really cool and haunting and kind of clever sort of object in the first place. That animation of the characters behind, inside the mirror, pounding and smashing frantically at the glass and bashing their heads against the glass and desperately trying to get out, and then bursting forward. It's really cool. It's something that the other games haven't really done much of, as far as I can recall. Not just to rag on the other games necessarily. I love all the Souls games, but it's just one of those weird, cool, quirky things that Dark Souls 2 does, that I think I would like to see more weird shit like that happen in future games. You might have noticed also that we picked up a bright bug. There aren't too many items like that in the game that give you sort of long-term trickling buffs, not trickling, that's a better way to put it. Well, the bright bugs are very limited resource items that give you a substantial boost. So it makes sense that Aldia would try to store something like that and figure out how they work. Now, for folks who are, I understand that some of the critiques of the base game involved oh man, this guy's a jerk. Involved the use and placement of the petrified, not petrified somethings, what are they called? The fragrant branches of yore. The idea being that they were sort of arbitrary keys. There weren't that many of them, and their only function really was just to kind of bar off content that some people wish that they had access to earlier than not. See, in Scholar, they both introduced a whole lot more fragrant branches, and then also more things that you could quote-unquote spend them on. So for example, I could spend one on this dude over here and potentially unlock a shortcut. Interesting statue to have there too. I can spend one on the hollow previously and potentially get access to a treasure. I can keep them to see if there are more secret areas or whatever that have been barred off that I could use. So I actually think that Scholar, as much as I think it kind of makes the items feel a little bit less special because there's just many more of them, I think ultimately I prefer Scholar's implementation of that system because it's just more flexible. You get, I think, maybe, I don't know, I think there is a room for objects in the game that are basically extremely rare and precious relics, and every time you get them, they should be a very, very seldom occurrence, and every time you should be wow, I can't believe that I actually found this is incredible. I have to be very, very careful about what I do with this thing because I'm only going to get one, right? Or one or two. I think those items are really magical, and it's, I guess, a little sad that was lost. But at the same time, I love the idea of basically having, a small key in a Zelda dungeon, but a set of small keys across the entire world that you can use on a variety of different things at your own pace, with your own sense of risk and reward. You can choose which ones you want to use at which time. I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of another, I guess, but it feels better to me to have the versatility, I guess. And ironically, I don't know if it's ironic, interestingly, they tried to do something like that for Dark Souls, for Elden Ring as well, right? Because there were those, they literally did this for Elden Ring. They had both of those systems, they had their cake and ate too, where the stone sword key was basically a fragrant branch of yore. And then they had whatever they were called, the imbued stone sword key, the special ones that you could only use on those very particular gates in what the hell is that place called? Liurnia of the Lakes. So yeah, I think Dark Souls 2 kind of put down the seeds, so to speak, for the system that Elden Ring wound up kind of expanding on later. And I hadn't thought of that before, but yeah, probably a waste of a flame butterfly. But yeah, let's see. Oh, interesting. Oh, he's tough. Okay, gotta get my shield out. Yeah, I don't think this... Well, my voice keeps cracking. I don't think this character was in... Or this particular encounter was in vanilla. I think this was added, but I'm not sure. I don't really think they did anything with, like, the lighting torches. And I will say, though, the durability... I don't know. I like the fact that durability is something you have to be more aware of. It feels like it has more presence in the game than something like Elden Ring. Does Elden Ring even have durability? I don't even remember. I guess that answers... It's like an answer in and of itself, right? If it has durability, it's so... like, such a minor part of the game that I don't even remember it. I know Dark Souls 1 does. Demon Souls definitely does. But I will say, like, I haven't been away from the bonfire very long. This is a fucking plus 10 sword. It's not like I've been doing a whole lot with it. And it's already, you know, like, pretty much broken. And if it breaks, it's going to cost me a lot to fix it. I think in terms of... If you're going through an area like Blight Town or something like that, where you kind of have to eke out... It feels more like survivalistic, right? Like you have to kind of eke out your... how can I say? You're spending a lot of time in one place and it's taking you a long time to go through, and survivalism is more of an active part of the experience, then it makes sense that, you know, managing your durability and seeing it's like kind of slowly degrade over time, feeling like your resources are depleting, like you're going to run out, like, oh my god, am I going to actually make it? Do I have enough to make it to the next checkpoint? Like, that can be a lot of fun. But the bonfires are, especially in areas like this, are all pretty close together. Also, I keep hearing a twinkling sound. Like there's a lizard somewhere. Oh, sorry, I missed the message. The mirrors are actually some of the sickest things I've ever seen in gaming, not just environmentally wise, for storytelling, but for engaging in fights. Yeah, I agree. It's such a cool mechanic. Remember... So, I think I could get the summon. I thought that... Okay, I'm definitely hearing one. What the hell? Where's it coming from? Oh, you know what? I think it's probably the magical sound effect that's attached to the door. To the prison. It just sounds a little bit like the, yeah. Is he gonna get up now? No? Okay. Maybe I missed something. I won't spend too much time here. On to the next thing. It does make me wonder, though, like, how the fuck did this dragon even get in here? Was Aldia just, like, assembling it together from pieces of dragon bones that he found? He just got in over his head, something like that? I will say, somebody pointed out that the creatures in Aldia's Keep are unfortunately... They seem to kind of be able to just get out of the cages whenever they want. And for some folks, that kind of ruins immersion. And initially, I was, like, not too bothered by that because, like, whatever. You know, maybe they just don't want to get out. Maybe they're You know, they've been mentally muted, for lack of a better word. Like, they've lost their will to do stuff. They basically kind of hollowed out in a certain sense. But the thing is, they're just kind of hanging out there doing their normal, like, idle animations. They don't seem to be... I mean, like, that one, the ogre there, his stance just looks like a regular one. There's nothing really to indicate to me that they've been pacified or whatever. So it just kind of feels like, yeah, maybe they should have had an additional animation to kind of imply that they were being sedated. Sedated was the word I was looking for. And I would potentially agree that it could be immersion breaking. Oh, but maybe they fixed it. I think the critique was that in, like, vanilla, when you come across these characters, if they see you and they start freaking out and attacking their cages, they can't get out. Oh, they get out immediately and the cages just break. And they're like, well, if they could break out of their cages, then why don't they beforehand? But it looks like they've addressed that, and that's maybe something that Scholar fixed. Unless, well, let's see. Let's see. Nope, maybe not. Oh, was he inside the crate? That'd be cool. I couldn't tell if the basilisk came from inside the crate or not. Okay, is he gonna break his friend out? Or break the other one? Yeah, he is. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, on the one hand, that does feel a little bit cheesy. Ah, shit. You know, like, if they can break out the whole time, like, why didn't they? I guess I can't really argue against that. But also, this is just I'm kind of having fun. It's not really bothering me, maybe as much as it should, I guess. This, on the other hand, you know. So how do you fairly respond to something like this? On the one hand, I think it's important to have places to retreat to if you get overwhelmed. And yeah, I guess I was going to say that this is sort of cheesy play, but it's not exactly securing me a victory. Like, I obviously still have to pay attention because it can still hurt me. I guess it's fine. It does feel a little bit clunky to be able to to be able to kind of go in the little space. But I guess it sort of weirdly balances itself out because, yes, I sort of funnel him, the ogre, into an area that's more tactically advantageous for myself in terms of defense, but then, like, I can't poke at him without putting myself, like, in this shitty little choke point. So yeah, there's a tiny bit immersion breaking, but still tactically, like, interesting, I guess. So now that I've already kind of sorry, all of this was just to say that I was going to just outright agree with the critique of the that's a cool moment though, of that initial area where the basilisk was sitting in an open cage, not moving at all. I'm like, well, surely he could have gotten out. There's nothing stopping him. So yeah, I think again, the way that I'm feeling about this area is kind of the way that I've been feeling about a lot of stuff. There are some really good ideas here, and the ideas are enough that for me, I'm able to overlook the lack of expert implementation. But there are some inconsistencies with the implementation. It doesn't feel masterful in that regard all the time. Also, why is the mimic laughing at me? Fucking creepy. The mimic can't get out, but the ogres can. Weird. The storytelling here is kind of nice, though. They could have fixed this whole thing. Fixed, in my opinion. I'm suggesting as opinion that it's broken. By just keeping the ogres in the cages, you know, until you lower them. Because I think there is a switch somewhere that lets you lower all this shit anyway. What the fuck was that? Hello. It was so close to being great, and I think it is good. This area in particular. I still think the game is great overall. Yeah. Now, this is something that I think people will have different opinions about. I do not like this green. I know this is probably going to sound super petty or whatever, but I feel like this particular shade of green feels much more modern and like it's veering into almost a sci-fi kind of aesthetic. There's too much of a glow. It's too like nuclear, if that makes any sense. And I'm not exactly sure why that decision was made. Also, there's a bonfire here that I don't know how we're reasonably supposed to find. But anyway. Let's see. Area is called the ritual site. Oh yeah, that's the doggos in there. 1 second, let me light that torch. So yeah, it for some reason just kind of feels like it belongs in a much more modern game. Sorry, his opponent says looks like gamma. Can you could you elaborate on that, please? Oh, like gamma radiation? Oh shit, there's another forlorn here. Maybe I shouldn't keep lighting those torches. I do like these little opt-in boss battles. This is kind of fun. Or mini boss battles, I should say. Although, honestly, some of these invaders are tougher than some of the bosses. I like their design a lot. I like their weapons. Their movesets are really cool. Weapon design is really cool too. Also, oh yeah, that's something I forgot to mention before. Every time you kill one of the one of the mimics, you get a piece of the dark set, which is the I don't remember their name, but if you go down to like the New Londo ruins in Dark Souls 1, there are these enemies. I think they're called the Dark Wraiths, right? They're just like there are these characters in like dark cloaks with skeletal masks and these sort of like odd broad swords with like a flat blade, like a thick flat blade. You gradually get that dark set piece by killing the mimics in this game, which is sort of interesting implications. Those dark wraiths also come back in Dark Souls 3, of course. Oh, was that guy about to throw some acid at me? I will say that I don't actually have a lot of fun fighting these ogres after a while. But it is kind of nice to be able to bait them into attacking stuff for you. Because there's no way to get in there through normal means. But you can get this guy over here and he will help you out. You can actually get a pretty cool item for the chest, which I think I might die. So, if I remember correctly, so the item that I just got is called the Malformed Shell, and I think Zuli the Witch had just posted a video about this recently, where they revealed that there was a boss in early Dark Souls 2, maybe in the crab. There was a boss in the crab. There was a boss in early Dark Souls 2, maybe in the Bastille, that was like this giant crab that had kind of worked itself into... Oh shit, I didn't know I could do that. Into a tower. And it was sort of like wearing the tower, so to speak, in the way that a hermit crab would wear a shell. And... Ooh, did it go down in the pit? What happened to the other one? And so basically, like, the hermit crab would crawl into the tower, and it would be like this environmental hazard style boss for you. Hey, he's down there. And you would sort of like gradually work your way around the tower, avoiding the crab, and then you would climb all the way up to the tower, and then you would defeat it, kind of like you defeated the Ancient Wyvern in Dark Souls 3, by dropping down a hole in the top of the tower and like using a plunging attack to defeat it or something like that. And so that was scrapped, which kind of sucks because that sounds like a really cool idea for you know, an environmental boss or whatnot. One sec. I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second. Gotta focus for a sec. Key. Damn it, that's gonna break too. Yep, okay. I forgot to take the rings off. That's okay. There's no way I'm making it out of this, huh? Oh shit, okay. Run. Don't open and... Yes, okay. Okay, there we go. Okay. Oh, and they're stuck in there. Oh, whoa, what the fuck was that? Oh, they're not stuck in there. Okay, hang on. Gotta get some weapon out. Okay, so the reason that happened is that... Actually, one second, I gotta focus so I can get the armor out quickly. Of course, I should really get rid of all this shit. There's way too much stuff in here. So the reason that happened is that that pit was full of acid. And it would have degraded all of my stuff. And as it is, I like had my rings break, but that's okay. I'll fix them soon. Anyway, before I forget, like fucking 3 different chains of thought over here. What I was trying to say about the malformed shell and all that stuff, or about the crab, there was a crab boss in early Dark Souls 2 beta or alpha or whatever, and it would wear a giant tower like a hermit crab shell, and you would have to fight it. You can fight it directly, or you can come down and plunge down on its head. And they took it out of the game, but they put in a couple of things to kind of serve as remembrances of it, so to speak. And there is this, I think, is one of the items, and then especially this. So this would be like one of the legs of the crab or something like that. Like this is part of the crab itself, and you would get that weapon. You can see it's kind of got like a crustacean-y vibe to it with the protrusions and the on the left and the colors and everything like that. Now they kind of retooled the description here to basically just be like, ooh, this is one of the spooky fucking Aldia tools. He was always up to something. But now all these years later, it's kind of cool, like thanks to Zully's research, that we know about the, you know, the real origins of it, which is nice. Anyway, I have to go fix all of my shit now. Sarah's opponent says, yeah, like Hulk, I saw the green. I was like, why is there a gamma here? Yeah, exactly. It does feel a little bit anachronistic, right? Breaking news, man strips and fights monsters. Man desperately removes clothing, fights dogs in vat of acid. So I think we'll go back to it in just a second. But the hell? Oh, I have to do this. There we go. Interesting thing about this area here is that right up above the pit that we fell in to come down here. We'll go back to it and take a look. No, come on. There are some giant corpses. Actually, let me just finish up with this. The reason why I'm continuing to fight this guy is because I thought there was an item that's like a unique drop from one of these guys. Guess I'm mistaken. If you look in there, you can see like some weird kind of twisting, curling horns. There's different sorts of bones down there. And if we go back up to where we fell into the hole, you'll see that there are some corpses of giants that are kind of... Shit. Come on. Come on. That are plastered around the hole. I guess I gotta fight this guy. Sorry, it's a little boring, but I don't, it's just gonna bother me. I will say that, you know, just personally, these enemies have been in the game for so long. Like, one of the first enemies that you'll see if you poke around at all in the intro forest area is one of these things. And this is like a late area of the game, and you're supposed to be in this lair of somebody who is doing all this crazy experimentation and encountering like weird and exotic forms of life and messing with them and stuff like that. And the majority of the time that you're in at least this section, you're gonna just be fighting these shitty ogres that, I don't know, I've personally never found all that much fun to fight, and you're gonna be fighting them over and over again. And I don't know, they have basilisks, they have enhanced undead, and they have those, you know, cool like dragon acolyte warriors. Why not have those be the primary fights that you're engaged in here? I don't find having to fight these same enemies that we've already seen several times. I find it to be a little bit anticlimactic, you know. That being said, nice little, very, very creepy, gross, weird imagery over here. I love it. Ironically, these giants are actually pretty small for giants, which makes you wonder about like their age, or yeah, there might be some kind of disturbing, like further disturbing implications here. But it seems like the giants might have just been thrown here as discarded corpses when Aldia was done messing with them. But also, the fact that their blood seems to be leaking down into the pit below, and the pit below is full of acid, makes me wonder if there's something about the giant's blood that has an acidic or like alchemically relevant property that Aldia found compelling or interesting for whatever reason, right? And maybe the acid is coming from the blood. I do think that Bloodborne kind of makes it pretty clear that a lot of the sources of poison in the game are basically just the fluids of other creatures that are just toxic to you as a person, to you as a human being, but not inherently toxic to other forms of life. Like, there's plenty of areas in the Nightmare Frontier, excuse me, where you see these aliens writhing around in the murk, and in the swamp, and in the like grossness, without sustaining any damage. So, but then once you set foot in it, you know, it's yeah, that I think is kind of a troll. But once you personally set foot in it, like, you start to decay immediately. So I might as well actually put some... Let me get through the door. Yep. That timing, I suppose. Let me put some functional rings on. Oh, okay. Not the end of the world, honestly. Nice to have backups. Oh, that scared me. Not gonna lie. Freaked me out. Yeah, let's just do this. Okay. So now I'm like slightly less useless. Slightly. Nice to have a backup weapon, especially with how much equipment degradation happens here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like, I don't know how to fight them particularly well. Like, clearly I don't, because I'm not doing very well at all. But this particular enemy is not very interesting to me to fight. And this late in the game, I feel like just putting something in front of us that is big and bulky, has a large health bar, and happens to do a lot of damage, doesn't inherently make for a very interesting like combat encounter, right? So, it's not a big deal or anything, but at this point, I'm not like I want to be fighting those things up there, right? The encounter with the whatchamacallit, the Forlorn, like, those have been pretty good. The Forlorn are those enemies that have been spawning when I use the torches. That stuff's been pretty cool. But the fucking ogres over and over again, This is very beautiful. The wow, I forgot how awesome this is. I love this shit. Really, really cool. It's one of those areas, again, that doesn't necessarily make all that much sense geographically when you try to piece it together with where you've just come from. Like, you should see these spires from Majula, basically. And then when you go up to Dragon Eyrie after this, you should also see more fires. Or you should be able to see the Dragon Eyrie from here too, and you kind of can't. But this arena too looks really cool. It kind of looks like Aldia just made himself a dragon cage and made it look extremely hostile and menacing and gross and weird. That sickle over there looks like it's one of those sickles that is wielded by those hunters in the Huntsman's Copse, sort of demonic looking ones. Those interesting little bits and bobs and pieces. Looks like he might have been hanging. Yeah, there's like a. I can't quite tell what it is. It looks like a hunk of meat with like an ear or something. Kind of disturbing. Here we have the Guardian Dragon. Another fight which is, I think, made a little bit, it's funny. When, oh yeah, this is going to be pretty easy, I think. Famous last words, but, one sec, I'll probably just focus on the fight for a second. I do think that that fire effect kind of makes it hard to tell where the borders of the fire are. So I wasn't exactly sure if I was in danger there. Oh shit, well, I guess that answers that. I feel like that was deliberately timed to make sure you would like take 2 ticks of damage. Very lucky that I didn't get, because obviously like when you're down, you're not actively taking more damage from the incoming fire. You have like temporary invulnerability, right? I guess this is a nice way of warming you up for the fight against the ancient dragon later on. I don't know. I like the fact that he's kind of jumping around. I like the fact that he's using his environment. That's kind of cool. He's got a mixture of terrestrial attacks and flight attacks. He's not swooping around a whole lot, but I think interesting. You're confined into a small space with a character that, with a creature that should be defined by its flight and its maneuverability. The idea of fighting a dragon that is trapped and imprisoned kind of seems interesting to me. It's an interesting way of reconciling the fact that, like, ultimately, if you were fighting a dragon for real, fucking dragon would never come down to earth, right? It would just like keep flying above you and toasting you. You'd have very little chance if you're just a dude with a sword. Now, where the fuck is the key? Because there's a whole bunch of other shit here that we haven't seen yet. I will say, before I forget, that I kind of like the way that in From Software games, they will... You know what? I bet it's in one of the cages. I like the way in From Software games that they have a tendency to introduce a character as a boss, and then later they'll have that character just be some random shit enemy that you fight, so to speak, like the Taurus demon, for example, in Dark Souls 1, right? It's one of the more dramatic moments in the early game, fighting that thing on the rooftops. A really nice little boss fight. It's not just the encounter with the demon itself either. You know, there's obviously like little environmental puzzle solving with the soldiers up on the parapet behind you. It rewards you for paying attention to them. You can use plunging attacks. You can use the environment to your advantage and stuff. It's a great fight, especially for an early game encounter. But then at the end of the game, you just see those things wandering around all over the demon ruins. And on the one hand, it's like, oh, okay, that sort of cheapens them being a unique boss, I guess you could say. But at the same time, it's also like kind of cool to it can be very empowering and very satisfying. You know, this thing, at the start of your journey, this thing was this menace, this terror, this thing that had its own health bar and everything, that you had to really kind of pull your resources together and keep your cool to be able to survive against. And now they're just fodder. Now you can just like cut them down like butter, like a knife through butter or whatever, and it can make you feel very powerful. It can feel very satisfying, you know, as an extension of your journey. Saria says this looks like that one dragon from How to Train Your Dragon, or maybe the reverse. Yeah, I think How You Train Your Dragon came first, but I'm not sure. Oh, right. So I'm hoping that I just missed something in the intro area, and I can kind of quickly grab the key there, because... Oh, this guy respawns? I didn't realize that. I like this, though. I like the, showing the petrified, forms. So if you're not aware, these enemies can, like, shoot out that, cloud of gas, and if you stay in it too long, it builds up a status effect called petrification, and as its name implies, once it fully builds up the bar, you will be petrified. It's an instant kill, and your body will be turned to stone and you will hollow. And it's kind of cool to see. I think, if I remember correctly, these aren't placed here in, like, by the developers. Oh, I don't have any more freaking branches? Oh, fuck. Is that where you get the key? I'm going to be so upset if that's the case. If I remember correctly, those are not placed there by the developers. Those are actually generated by online play. So if I'm online and I die to one of those things, then somebody else's world, possibly multiple other people's else's world, will have one of those petrified statues placed in their world. That makes sense. So let's see how we're doing on time. A little bit more time. I think I want to try to get to the Dragon Shrine, because I'd like to try to wrap up this playthrough. 1 second. Oh, there it is. There's one more. I think basically trying to figure out what to do in terms of like scheduling and stuff like that. I think that well, I know that once Night Rain comes out, I want to spend some time playing that with folks. I think it'd be fun to play with that in stream a little bit. And in anticipation of that, I'd like to, not to rush it. Oh, come on. 1 second. I gotta deal with this. Oh shit, that's gonna be bad. Oh my god. I realized that I was gonna get blocked off by the dragon bones. Oh well. No big deal. Just gotta make sure to get those souls back. But yeah, so I want to play Night Rain when it comes out, and focus on that. So I don't want to rush it, but I'd like to try to finish up the main game playthrough of this game before Night Rain comes out, so I can focus on that when it happens. So at the moment, my plan is to, I think we'll be able to get through to the final boss tomorrow, or next stream next week, meaning to finish up the base game and fight Nashandra. And if that's the case, then I think we've gotten to the point where I have, at least personally, like I feel like I've learned what I was hoping to about the game in terms of being able to respond to critiques and all that. I'm debating whether or not to then go on and do the DLCs, or whether to get back to like the base game Elden Ring playthrough, or what to do next. I'm still not entirely decided. Definitely open to suggestions. That being said, it would be fun to do the DLC at some point. I'm just trying to figure out like what the order of events should be. So potentially do a little bit of the Dragon Eerie for the next half an hour or so, and that should give us plenty of time to comfortably wrap up next stream. Yeah, Mauler and folks like that, I don't know, you know, how you're supposed to reliably fight against enemies that do that much burst damage using life gems alone without just like burning through thousands of souls per encounter. Thousands of souls worth of Life gems, meaning. Oh yeah, that was something interesting. I don't think that we've seen any character thus far, apart from my own character, including NPC invaders, use a life gem, except for the dragon acolytes, which are the guys with the sort of creepy shiny masks that keep coming out of the paintings in Aldia's Keep. I'm pretty sure that that's the case, which means that like life gems themselves, excuse me, have some sort of special significance to Aldia. Maybe he was making them for his own purposes, which makes sense. Seems like something he'd be capable of. Okay, here we go. Ow. A little silly. So I don't hate that. You know, that's pretty... Okay. Yeah, no. I'm torn. Because on the one hand, I like the fact that we had, like, a nice progression, so to speak, of the level. Like, you go through the level once to explore it, then you go through it again to do the challenge of, you know, defeating all the enemies and activating the dragon. It feels like the dragon is almost like acknowledging your worth or something like that. And then once you've bested the dragon and you get the key from that interaction with the dragon, then you can go to the real sort of darker parts of the keep. So overall, I like that a lot. But I think, you know, it's entirely possible that you would have done things in the opposite direction, right? Like, what if you lit that first torch first and then went and did all the other ones? Then how would that affect the way that you interacted with the dragon? Like, would you start that animation from the other direction? Would that kind of mess it up for you? I'm not sure. It feels, I don't know. I wish something that they could have done, which actually they do stuff like this in Elden Ring with the in the DLC, in the specimen what is it, specimen gallery, whatever it's called, where like there are these skeletal structures that will rotate and reposition, and as they do, it kind of gives you access to new parts of the level. I kind of wish it was like that, where you went through one part of the level and then you came back, and the game like guaranteed that you would always come back to the first area, and that you would always be in front of the dragon when it activated. And then when it did, it would, like, rather than just giving you a key, you know, it would instead more like... A sec. Oh, hi. Oh, shit. Yeah, see, he just used a life gem. Interestingly, he had actually burst healed him as opposed to the way it works on us. But yeah, that way it would like that's cool. 1 second. That way it would feel a little bit more organic than like, oh, there was a key up the dragon's nose and he just sneezed it out when he you know, when he fell down the stairs. A little awkward. That would guarantee that all players would have the same like baseline experience. Kind of expected that was going to be the case. The mimic. Yeah, he's getting ready to eat me. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, this should have been in the main hall. Like, this is really challenging. Reasonable, but like a varied challenge. There's a variety of different types of attacks coming at me, from a variety of different enemy types. There's close range enemies, there's long range enemies, there's the reincorporation of this particular enemy that we haven't seen since... Actually, I think we've only seen this enemy in the one boss fight, right? There's the gargoyle over there, which is... We've only seen the one boss fight and once at Drangleic Castle. So basically, we have all of these different interactions with different interesting and compelling matchups and everything like that. Even though this is just a big stupid room, like one single corridor or whatever, the tactical space and challenge that we were presented with felt more interesting than that entire long corridor beforehand. So I think maybe there's a version of this level where you know, there are layered rooms that kind of snake in and out from one another, and there's you know, a more organic way of opening up pathways to switch between the levels, and you fight more and more like crazy and exotic creatures as you go through the area. And the more of the area you open up, like the crazier the encounters get. And I think they kinda got there. It's like a C plus. It feels really something about the way that I said that, it feels like kind of really condescending, and I didn't mean it to. I'm more, you know, I think this was a really good idea for the time, and given the budget and time constraints and everything else that they accomplished with the game, I think that this level is a success overall. Playing it 10 fucking years later with the benefit of hindsight and everything else, I do think that there is still some room to grow, and if I were to choose where that growth should be, in my opinion, then I would put it in basically taking what makes this room compelling and transferring it back out into the main space. So yeah, it's not that it's bad, it's that I want more of the good stuff. Are those big hooks? But I like the fact that it's also, it makes me wonder, like, did Aldia go and collect all these specimens to bring back for study? Or was he more like fucking around with stuff and then creating these creatures in the first place? Well, that's interesting. Actually kind of just like gave myself what I asked for, didn't I? That's actually kind of cool. They pull the lever and all those cages fall down and all the enemies kind of pop out of them. Except now I'm screwed. How the fuck do I get back over there? Okay, yeah. So, no, I'm gonna bump it up to a B+, actually. I think that's pretty cool. Of course, now I wish I had a fucking ranged weapon, some spells or something, because now I'm in a bit of a pickle. Like, oh yeah, so that's cool. The basilisks are kind of flanking me. One came from the other door. Raw stone, that's useful. Fire drake stone, that's also useful. Okay, careful. Enhanced undead. I think there's another mimic somewhere. Yeah, there's one over there. I really don't want to screw it. Yeah, poison knives, I'm going to use them. I forgot about that aiming mechanic. You get through. And I wish you could get through. Yeah, so I don't know. Part of me wants to continue like with the extremely restricted playthrough, but at this point I've done it enough that I think that like using an occasional ranged item like this, it doesn't really break it. And honestly, like I don't like want to play the game that way. I don't find it fun. I don't know why you would. There's so many tools and options that you have, and you're just gonna be like, no, I have to use the broadsword the whole time. If that's the way that you want to play, fine. But for me, I actually like to use the different options that the game gives us. You know. And by you, I'm not talking to anybody in chat or anybody in particular. But just to be clear, just kind of having an imaginary conversation with a Dark Souls 2 hater in my head. You know, like a normal, healthy, sane person would do. Yeah, but see, like, I was having trouble using my axe, which was my primary weapon, because even though I was using a variety of different attacks from the axe, none of them were making their way in a satisfactory way through the doorway. And so instead, I just took out a sword. The sword has a poking, like a thrust attack, which is much more effective at getting through the narrow space. So I think a lot of times when I see people get frustrated with the game during critiques, they use the same weapon for the most part, not all the time, but often, and or they use the same weapon class and don't experiment with all the different options that the weapons have. Like, oh shit. Okay, great. You know, they don't experiment with all the different options that are provided. And the thing is, a sword in this game really should be looked at as more like a trick weapon from Bloodborne. No, it doesn't quite look like that on the surface, but many of the weapons have a wide variety of different attacks and utilities. So this is like the most basic ass longsword that you can find early in the game that'll carry you through the whole game. So we have our initial attacks, just to go over them really quickly, are a slash, which is good for stuff that's right in front of you, and also slightly good for things that are on the flanks as well, like less good. But it has a tiny bit of like an AoE arc to it, so you can hit multiple small combatants at the same time if they're lumped together, right? And then the follow-up is actually more of an arc. So while that initial slash is better for a target that's right in front of you, the follow-up actually has a little bit more AoE as far as I can tell. And so if you angle yourself correctly, like let's say that those buckets are your enemies, right? If you go at them directly like this, that front attack is going to hit the bucket in the middle. But if you stand off to the side a little bit, your first attack would hit the bucket in front of me. The second attack would probably hit those two buckets to the side. Let's see if that works. Well, almost. But you see that sweep over there is actually has quite a bit of utility to it. Then the heavy attack is like this. Not only is it a sweep that's good for, crowds of enemies, but it's also a lunge forward. It's got some mobility to it, and the follow-up as well. You have this advancing thrust, whereas your main attack, you do advance forward as well, actually. You advance either way, which is something I think is overlooked a little bit. You are actually changing your positioning with every strike. And then if you switch to two-handed mode, you have a similar slash with more weight behind it, but again, like a diagonal followed up by a horizontal. And then if you switch to you use your strong attack, you get a poke. And this is much more like a spear attack or an S-stock attack. And the follow-up stays with that forward advancing poke thrust, right? So it doesn't switch back and forth between different slashes. It just keeps on with that like poke. The animations I think are actually really good. Like if you watch what actually happens with your character's hand, the way that they're kind of like pulling their arm back and then thrusting forward, very effective. So basically this is a sword, but it is also kind of an axe and also kind of a spear, depending on the way that you use it. Now, let me see. I think the enhanced undead is gone. So what I want to try to do, without taking up too much time, is I want to see if I can get all the unique enemies defeated, just in case they drop anything. And also to kind of live up to my own, desire for, a complex environment, like combat encounter with a variety of different types of enemies. Maybe I should just get the fucking souls. Okay. There we go. Wow, okay. Yeah, this is challenging. This is great. Different enemy types. One enemy can do this AoE status gas cloud, another can heal himself. Interesting, varied enemy designs. I really like this place. Except for the ogres. I gotta stop doing that. And it's not the end of the world to deal with them, they're just kind of annoying. It's the sort of thing where like it requires so much stamina, even at a high level, to just consistently avoid their attacks, and they get back up and start fighting you again so quickly that it can be a little bit it can be a bit of a waiting game, just like to wait for those small windows to attack. Okay. That one little silly, like almost lonely looking spit glob that he does is kind of funny. Okay, let's see. Not very effective. I feel like these enemies are either extremely... Oh, I got a fragrant branch. Okay, that's perfect. These enemies are either like extremely deadly in a way that feels broken or completely useless in a way that feels broken. Now, I don't want to get too close to him and have to repair the rest of my gear. Let's see if the knives will do it. I don't know if they're... Oh yeah, he's vulnerable to poison. Okay, I'll just wait it out. And there's one more. There's the last mimic over there. Yeah, I think poison knives might be a little overtuned. Corrosive rune. They're definitely like obviously like they're incredibly effective. Um, easy to use, pretty low risk, long range, accurate, but they are pretty expensive. And the character who you can get them from most reliably, Gavlan, is kind of out of the way. Actually, I don't even know where he is currently right now. I have to go look it up. I think he's in the Doors of Pharos, but I'm not sure. Ooh, nice Black Witcher staff. Yeah. So I guess, you know, in a way, as is often the case with this game, as I'm finding, what I wanted out of this level, I didn't get initially, but then the more time I spent with it, the closer and closer it got to what I was hoping for in terms of the vision for the level. I think given the scope of the game overall, given everything else it has to offer, and given still, you know, like the way that this level kind of encourages you to play encourages you to play it 3 times with slight, you know, iterations and opening up little bits of it and seeing it in new ways every time. I do feel like it's actually really well designed, because that corridor starts off as a big stupid corridor and then it expands, then it expands again, and it gets an additional layer. Like, I think it's really good. I think there is an even better version of this level that was like, you know, the Elden Ring version of this level is like a 4-hour long mansion that has like more intricate twists and turns and maybe some more puzzles or something. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to be that long. This is purely subjective. I feel like there is a slightly more mature, slightly more refined version of this level out there that I wish I were playing right now. But I don't know. It kind of feels like I have this cake. It's a really, really solid cake. It doesn't have frosting on it, but it's such a good cake that I don't really care. I mean, I kind of do. If somebody were to come along and put frosting on it, I'd be really happy, and I'd probably prefer that. But at the end of the day, I'm still eating this delicious cake. It's pretty well made. Pretty good cake. So, I'm not going to cry about it. The fuck was that with the camera? Oh, I was spamming the button. That's on me. Nice. Okay. So, yeah. Felt like a really nice natural progression through there. Lots of interesting items, interesting different enemies. I like the fact that you get more opportunities as more areas open up, but also like there are more perils as well. You know, you're bringing these creatures down to you, which opens up again new paths and gives you access to new items and stuff. It exposes more of the keep and all that. But at the same time, it's like you are increasing the hazard, so you better be prepared to deal with the new situation that you've gotten yourself into. Very interesting. If they just take the ogres out and put Shrek back in his swamp, be a little bit better. But what are you gonna do? Not too hard to avoid them. Okay, you know, I was saying before that Aldia had imprisoned the dragon here. But I mean, I think it could just fucking leave whenever it wants to. Right? Like, maybe I completely misread this, because yeah, it's a big ass cage, but the dragon can fly, and there's no like top to the cage. So I wonder if the intention here was to sort of imply that the dragon, maybe like in the initial implementation of it, was not supposed to be able to fly at all, and he was only supposed to be able to like jump up and grab onto the cage and like shimmy around, you know, like crawl around on the iron bars and stuff like that, but he couldn't actually fly out. And if that were the case, that would actually make his like imprisonment here like all the more tormenting, because the freedom is right there if he could just climb up to it or fly to it, but he wouldn't be able to. But he is called the Guardian Dragon, and we do see a bunch of dragons just like him. We see one outside the Cathedral Blue, and then we see a bunch more like him in a minute when we get to the Dragon Eerie. So I wonder if that's actually what he was supposed to be. And maybe he, or she, I keep saying he, I don't know why, the dragon was actually more sentient and was making a decision to stay here to protect you know, the access to the Dragon Eyrie and is not a prisoner. It's just weird. Like, if they're not a prisoner, then why are they in this, like, horribly disgusting cage that looks like something out of fucking Silent Hill, you know, with these bloody, torn, skin-hued bandages, look like diseased flesh, and the, you know, the hooks and the, like, that, like, bent piece of metal, like the spikes coming out of it, very, like, gross and terrifying looking thing. Kind of weird to think of just, you know, could have just left at any time and it just decided to stay there. I will say, little nitpick, this doesn't bother me. I understand the limitations, budget and time and stuff like that. But obviously, if you look at the trees down there, you can see that some of them are clearly like flat, like sprites essentially. That's not the right term for them, but they're like flat textures that are kind of juxtaposed over each other, like little paper models, as opposed to full 3D volumetric trees or whatever with leaves and moving parts. And yeah, they're not fully 3D. If they didn't have time to do that, they didn't have it in the budget or whatnot. It's understandable. Sometimes you just run up against those limitations. You can actually kind of see, if you look over here, that the texture right there that's really close to us on the right side of the screen there is very blurry, not particularly high res or anything like that. So these are the sorts of things that I think will kind of be immersion breaking for some people. And I can understand that. I don't know if you guys remember in Mass Effect 3 at the beginning, when the, you know, Earth is under siege, you can actually look down at the city and you'll see like these little 2D sprites that are just kind of looping very, very simple animations, and they look very like, you know, NES era, because at a certain point you just run out of time and money and performance budget, and there's only so much that you can squeeze in every frame, right? And I think this is just where they hit their limit for this forest. That being said, I think they did an amazing job with what they had, keeping in mind like how many different biomes and environments and tile sets and visuals and lighting schemas we've seen so far in the game. I mean, like, to come out of Aldia's Keep and see this, they did a really good job of creating an illusion of depth and density to the forest. Those spires, of course, are like visually excuse me, reminiscent of Ash Lake and also of the spires that we saw in the Things Betwixt. So it's a very kind of you know, awe-inspiring vista, rolling hills in the distance, and then the mountains as well in the distance are very nice too. Some of them seem to be kind of snow-capped. Those pillars over there, those fragmented shards of earth kind of sticking up out of the ground, very interesting. Feels kind of magical, but still grounded at the same time. The cloud cover, like the mist fog kind of coming in, and oh, it's animated too. I didn't realize that. If you actually look closely, look at the pillar that my character's hat is currently overlapping, and just look at the clouds. They're actually moving in between the pillars. I never noticed that before. So they took the time not only to paint that in, but to animate it too. I guess it could have been more impressive if they added like a little bit of extra wind and had the trees blowing in the wind or something like that, or added some leaf particles in the air to sell that. But again, you know, budget limitations, time limitations, engine limitations. I'm really just like, I'm not only asking for frosting on the cake now, I'm also asking for like little eclairs to be put on top of it, and maybe some like fucking Sour Patch Kids, and to get a back massage while I'm eating it. You know, it's like, at a certain point, like, you just have to shut the fuck up and enjoy the amazing fucking work that other people have done to entertain you, I think. Not to put too fine a point on it or anything. That being said, I understand that this transition is another one of those things that bothers people. Let's see how it feels going up inside of the mountain or something like that. I mean, come on, it's just really fucking cool. Hey, look at that. It's just so fucking cool. Listen to the sound of the dragons flying by. The low bass whoosh of their wings. The air's so dense with so many of them. Yeah, it looks and sounds really beautiful. I don't know. So I understand that some people find that transition there with the elevator up, it feels like this place shouldn't exist where it is. It feels like it's impossible for it to be above Aldia's Keep, especially if you're looking up from Aldia's Keep. And, you know, if you feel that way and it kind of ruins things for you, then that's okay. Like, I'm not going to try to make you feel differently or anything like that. I'm speaking to a hypothetical person, right? Not anything in chat. But at the same time, like, I feel like they did enough with the limitations that they had to try and sell that transition by like showing you little glimpses of the dragons through the like holes in the walls as the elevator was ascending, and also, you know, if you look down, you can still see those rock spires. You can still see the same kind of lighting and palette and everything. It seems visually connected. It seems like this is just a secret area that's difficult to perceive through normal means from the ground below, that Aldia somehow stumbled upon and managed to actually create a passage to. And I don't see it as being some sort of impossible space. To the extent that it strains credulity or immersion or whatever, I think it's totally acceptable within the bounds of, you know, like suspension of disbelief for a fantasy magical dreamland. Maybe I'll take the word dream out because I know that was kind of retconned. Sorry, let me rephrase that. So yeah, it's a fantasy realm, and originally it was planned to potentially be more dreamlike and maybe take place within a dream or something like that. So it fits within that sort of like fantasy dream logic, I think. And it just looks really fucking cool. I mean, come on, look at that. Look at that shit. Look at that fucking dragons. Look at that fucking dragon. Right? Like, you gotta, even if you fucking hate this game, even if you like can't stand the B team at FromSoft or whatever the fuck Feeble King was saying, you gotta just look at this and you gotta look at the fucking dragons. You gotta just take a minute and look at the fucking dragons. Look at this. Look at this. It's so cool. Okay. What better place to stop than here, as I'm starting to have my cough come back. I think I'm gonna call it for now. I think we've got another hour or two here, and maybe another hour to wrap up the journey to the throne for our next stream. So I do think we'll get to the end of the main game next stream. I think the stream after that will probably be the music stream. And then I'll touch base with you guys and see if you want to do more Elden Ring or go through the DLCs after that. Thank you so much for stopping by. Saria, aloha. Hope you guys are doing okay and have a great rest of your week. This Sunday we'll be continuing to work our way through the multiversal Naruto video. And in the meantime, hope you have a great, repeating myself here, have a great rest of your week, have a great night, and I'll see you guys soon.